Welcome back to WRPL, the podcast where we talk about all the things we were watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well, Ben. How about you?
I'm okay. Yeah, can't complain.
Very cool.
So I have a surprise.
I like surprises.
And I wanted to make good on last week. We are going to try fruitcake.
Okay.
I went to a local grocery store, went to the bakery, and couldn't find any. And I asked them, and the younger woman was like, "Oh, yeah, we got it." And she starts walking me over, and the old lady's like, "No, we don't." So then she brings me to like fruit tarts and actual like cakes with fruit on top of them. Like,
Okay.
This is probably the closest thing we got. I was like, no, like the Christmas fruit cake. And she kind of looked at me like, I don't know what that is. So maybe it's kind of fallen out of the public consciousness.
That's so interesting. Okay.
So I was walking around, I was like, they got to have something. And they had a little basket on an end cap of one of their things. I had little fruit cake. So I made sure I went back and I was like, this is what I'm talking about, lady. Take a look at it. It is not appealing looking.
Okay, so we are looking at a brand, Benson's.
Classic Benson's fruitcake.
Old Home Classic Fruitcake, yep. Chilled cake for easier slicing, all right.
Chill 2 slice?
Chill cake for easier slicing.
That's weird.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
all right, let's, yeah. I mean, it looks kind of like someone threw up and then froze it. But
yeah,
I'm into it.
It's lumpy. It's got weird colors. It's got a gloss to the top of it.
I see why, the joke of it looks gross or it's a brick, in all those cartoons is accurate.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't know that there were pecans on this.
I'm not huge on pecans. I don't mind them, but
I'm not
I am a huge fruit guy though. Like I love any kind of fruit, so.
Well, this is gonna be interesting. Okay, I see what they mean about.
Yeah, at room temperature, it doesn't slice well.
All right. It smells kind of vinegary. Do you smell it?
Yeah, I don't know if vinegar would have been my first choice, but it is pungent.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm smelling a lot of grape now.
Yeah. Grape bubble gum. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Apologies if you hate the sound of us chewing. I don't hate it. Like if my grandma made this and offered it to me, I'd be like, "Oh, thanks, grandma," and I'd eat a slice.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go for a second slice.
Probably not. Well, if it didn't have the nuts, or it had a different type of nut, I would like this a lot more. But as is, it's not that bad.
I can see people not being a fan of it for like texture-wise.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah, it's a little hard to pin down as to what you're chewing on, because obviously it's fruit. But if you told me it was like jelly beans, I'd also believe you.
Well, it's candied fruit. So it's not bad. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because like you can see all the candied fruit in there, and it's like almost colorful. Like I feel like this could be a very attractive dessert, but because of the murky brownness, it just looks gross. But it's not bad. All those people who hated on fruitcake, I don't know if fruitcake 20 years ago was just terrible. But,
Yeah, and this is a mass-produced fruitcake.
That's true.
When you make it on your own, I'm sure you do use bigger pieces of candied jellied fruit, and maybe it's not as dense. I would think it'd be. So it's a pretty dense cake, but very crumbly at room temperature. Glazed nuts on the top and throughout. Yeah, if it was a different nut, I'd like it more, but the nuts I do like are kind of strong. Maybe I think cashew would have to be the only one because it's more mild. Pecans and walnuts, they do their purpose inside of a cake and make it gross. Yeah, I'll give that on the cake smash or pass. I guess I'd smash.
Yeah, I'd smash, but I wouldn't call it again.
But I get why, like, I'd smash, and then I'd say I'd never doing that again, and then a year comes around again, and it's like, oh, it's the holidays.
Better call that cake up.
Yeah, I haven't had that fruit cake. Okay, maybe it wasn't as bad as I remember. So our main topic today is Avatar: The Way of Water. We're also gonna. I finally finished God of War, so we're gonna talk about that.
All right.
Rick and Morty came to an end, and then Steve has a few other things. I've been too busy playing God of War nonstop, about 45 hours or so. Not even close to being done with all the side stuff. I cleared out a map. Let's just talk about God of War first.
Oh, God. Okay.
We'll start with God of War.
Spoilers, as always, for everything we're about to talk
absolutely,
about.
for sure. And I'm looking at all the little icons, and it's like 75% clear. I'm like, there's no other missions on the board. And like, well, there's still like 3 undiscovered locations. I'm like, oh my god, there's so much of this map I still need to clear out. So if I own this game, I'd be so thrilled. Every side thing I've done has been extremely fun and unique, and some of them are like really hard and involved, and some of them are real simple things right around the corner, finish up a thing. And some of them I don't even pay attention to. Like for the squirrel, was named Radagaskar.
Yeah, let's go with that.
It's just like, oh, can you find all these deer they went missing? And it's like, yeah, sure. I'm not looking for them, but it's like, oh yeah, that's one of those things. Yeah, I guess I'll hit X on it and clear that out. Uh, but we're gonna talk about the story more than we did last week. It seemed like you were itching to like ask me something about the story.
If there was something particular,
Yeah, like were you waiting for a specific moment? Like, oh, I can't wait to talk to Ben about this.
I mean, I think there was just a bunch of story moments in the game, especially like late game.
Yeah.
That I want to get your reactions on, and if that worked for you or if it didn't work for
Okay.
you. Characters that have been introduced that we haven't.
Let me guess.
Talked about.
Tyr. The reveal of Tyr was never Tyr. It was just Odin the whole time. I was pretty shocked by that.
I gotta say, I didn't see it coming.
That was a good gotcha moment. But as it went on, the more you think about the things you guys have done, I don't know if it really works. It's just Odin would have to be so fucking busy, and what a great actor. But hey, we've seen from his stories of turning into animal. No, yeah, he turned into animals and had sex, or was that Zeus? I'm sure they both did.
No, I mean Zeus is the one who I think is most famous for turning into animals and banging everything. But I don't think Odin was the coolest guy.
Yeah. So I like and I don't like it. I think it worked at the moment, but upon retrospect, I don't know. If he would have maybe killed Tyr and we came across his body and then like, oh, when did they swap places? That could have been fun, and try to figure it out on a playthrough of wins the moment. But him being it the whole time, I don't know. I don't know if he's that good.
So I was assuming you haven't seen it. Can I spoil something that happens like super late game?
Okay.
So to counter what you just said,
All right.
after you like 100% everything, I think there's like an additional mission that pops up, and basically you go to this prison, and inside this prison is the real Tyr who is still alive. And this was broken down in the YouTube short that I saw, but like there's a dwarf that spits on you and Startelheim, I forget how you say it. Svartalheim, yeah. Apparently, the director of the game said that's Odin, who's like spying on you in each realm. Like that dwarf who spits at you, that's him in disguise.
Okay.
And you see that same dwarf's body dead in one of the prison cells. So it's just like I guess he can like capture people and then like steal their identity that way, kind of thing. And so that'll cover up your explanation of just like, well, if we saw him do that. Sure. So the game had kind of thought about it.
Okay, good. Glad to hear it.
But you don't find that out till like the very, very
end. If you're going to 100%
and you wouldn't even notice who that dwarf was without like this YouTube thing explaining it to you.
Yeah. One of the fun little story things, you're on your boat and your head, what's his name? Mimir, yeah. Well, side note on that. If I have to hear him call me brother one more time, like every fucking sentence, you do not need to call me brother. It gets real old.
That didn't bother me, but okay.
He's telling a story and like, hey, Kratos, I heard that you took part in this, huge tournament of, in a gladiatorial fights against adventurers and automatons and world-class magicians, a princess, or
the world's greatest musician.
The world's greatest musician, and he's talking about PlayStation All-Star Brawl.
Mhm.
And if I would not have seen a TikTok that
Yeah,
showed it, I would have never got it. I was like, oh, I guess that probably happened in one of the games. There's like 7 God of War games before they rebooted it. So,
I remember playing that and hearing that, and I had no idea. I was like, that seems like a very weird
yeah.
sentence to throw in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, yeah, because I didn't play God of War 1 or 2 or the like
Ascension
Ascension or
and,
whatever it
yeah,
was,
Chains of
or like if it was just like
Olympus.
one line of dialogue, it's like, yes, I participated in this tournament
Yeah.
before I became a god or
Yeah.
whatever. Like I would have just believed it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a fun little
Yeah.
like here's something just for the weirdos who play.
Mm-hmm. I liked how it ended. I was proven wrong. Kratos doesn't die. And if I would have thought about it harder, I should have. Obviously, he's not going to die because after you play the game, you could still go play all the rest of the game. And if they kill off
Yeah,
Kratos,
but in the game's defense, like plenty of games, you can die and then it just takes you back to the mission before the final mission. It's like
mm-hmm,
now that you beat the game, do everything else, and then you can come back and play it, like beat the final level again. Like
sure,
games
yeah,
do that,
that's true, but not this game.
but not this game.
So I have some criticism, though.
Let me hear some criticisms.
I'm kind of over the no cuts. I don't think it's really all that novel and that interesting. I understand long takes, but trying to make everything, sometimes you just need a cut to black. Let us hold on a beat, but they have to try any which it's a dream sequence that flows into someone else's dream sequence just to make sure, oh, we can't have a cut. It's got to be continuous camera. And I think it's not as flawless as the first game. You really notice how good it is, and in this, there's a bit more of a staggering of you can tell something's loading in the background because just like the character model will like stop and go to a normal stand and then go to open a door, and you could tell it's not a fluid thing.
Sure.
So you see little things like that, but I don't know, just cut away once in a while. Sometimes you need to cut to someone else across the world and then having to write this convoluted way to connect it back to another character just because you don't want to make a cut. I don't think that's necessary.
Okay, I mean, I get that, and I'd be interested to see like the writing, like how they decided to flow this game the way they did. Um, but I mean, it didn't bother me. I love the fact that when I played that first game, I didn't know going into it that that's what was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was great because, as we've said on this podcast, I'm a huge fan of long takes
Mm-hmm.
in cinema and TV, and I imagine we're going to see now that technology and everything is getting easier to like make those transitions seamless. We're going to see movies with like longer takes where it's like,
Sure.
oh, it's been 16 minutes without a take. It's
Mm-hmm.
been half an hour without a take. I mean, 1917 was one of my favorite movies, and it's essentially all one long take, even though
Yeah.
obviously there's cuts in there. But I love the idea of doing that because there's sometimes you're just watching a movie, and the idea like of just jumping and cutting and stuff
Mm-hmm.
is so distracting sometimes. So
Sure.
where like if you can just be immersed and like kind
Sure.
of, especially when a game like the whole idea is I want to be immersed in the experience and I'm playing
Okay.
this character and I'm not having to like wait for a loading screen, like a story's being told to me as the game's loading,
Sure.
like all that stuff. As a player, I really appreciate it.
I don't mind the hidden loadings. Like, yes, I'm going through a crack. I know what's happening. It's loading on the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
side. I'm fine with that stuff. It's just Atreus fallen asleep, and then we have to watch his dream, and then you know transfer over to Kratos' dream at one point. It's just it's not in service of any story really. It just seems like a fun thing. Let's see, can we do it? Sure.
Well, I think it's
Like in
both.
1917, that's the point. You're with these people through their whole journey,
Yeah.
and it's too long to like. Oh, they did this in what, a week, a day, 3 months? Who knows? But it's one continuous take, and it doesn't really need to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other criticisms you got?
Uh, I mean, I do get turned around a lot. Oh, okay, no, big criticism. This fucking map. They didn't learn their lesson from the first one. This map is so it's not there to tell you exactly where to go. It's a map as if you were looking at the world at that time. You only know so much of the details. It's not going to show you every little thing. But even with that, if I could just zoom in a little more, it would be very helpful because it's just really there to tell you the markers, and you're supposed to use the in-game, compass to
Yeah.
kind of find your way. And that's the whole point of the game, finding your way. But some of these levels are so confusing. I need a better map. Like the Jedi Fallen Order. Is that what it's called?
Hmm.
Like beautiful map. It still needs work with like its colors. Sometimes it's hard, but you can see 3D of everything and turn it every which way. It's very, very helpful. And this was just like the most basic bare bones map.
Yeah, well, if I remember correctly, like there's not a lot of like side stuff to do in Jedi Fallen Order.
There's plenty, not to this extent, but there's enough little things there.
But I just mean like,
But they were mostly to be like, now you got a different hilt. Ooh, it's all cosmetic
right,
stuff.
yeah. Where this, it's like the only time that map ever really bothered me is like if I'm trying to get to somewhere and it's like, oh well, like yeah, it's pointing you in this direction to go over here, but really you need to go over to this other island so you can
Yeah.
like zip line across this
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like that stuff drove me a little nuts from time to time. It's like
Yeah.
how do I climb up this thing? There's
Yeah.
like nowhere for me to do this, or like there was times where I'm just like I have to like really kind of search to or like look around and like pause for a second. I was like, where am I supposed to
Yeah.
go?
Especially
Uh,
when you can swing with your chain and you climb up rock faces, then you see one where, there's just kind of a little bit bigger rock in your way, and like you could get over this, Kratos. I know you can. You can get up this ledge. I've seen you do more, and he just can't. So that stuff is frustrating. Um, well, I mean, we could talk about the ending. Um,
well, before we talk about the ending, I mentioned, well, maybe this is what you were talking about when you really want to talk about something. I think my favorite scene in the entire game, like there's great stuff at the end, like
mhm.
that's all the like real big emotional payoff. My favorite scene was Brock blessing the spear.
Mm.
I don't know if you gave a shit about that scene at all, but
Ah.
I just really liked it because it was like the two most sort of like the one guy who like barely speaks at all versus the guy who just kind of like is just this loudmouth like kind of jerky dude, and they just have
Mhm.
like this really sweet moment together where it's just like it needs a great. It's like Kratos. I think it was like the first time in the game, other than Atreus, where like Kratos really like is connecting with
Mhm.
another person, in a like you're my friend way. Like Mimir's always there, and I can't remember if he like has his moment with Frey, but it's not like we're friends. It's just like we've decided to let this go.
Well, there's a little bit where, uh, after you beat it, it's like, hey, and Atreus has walked away. Like, oh, there's a big world out there. I'd like you to come and join me. And she's like, all right, I'll do that. So he does kind of. I don't know if he like fancies her or anything, but it did seem like you're my friend now, and I like you around. Please stay with me.
You're talking about at the end.
At the after once it's like the game is done
Oh
and
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah,
started
yeah.
back
No,
up. Yeah.
I'm just talking about like at this point in the
Oh,
game.
okay.
Yeah. So just seeing Kratos like letting like someone other than the two guys who like literally just never leave him,
Mm-hmm.
like having that moment with him and Brock like having a sweet moment where he's just like he doesn't like say thank you or anything like that, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just like it's I feel like it's something he kind of needed because he finally met the mermaid woman of his dreams and she just like kind of rejected him.
Yeah.
And so it's just like I don't know, I just really love that moment and it's just like a badass spear and just the way the music swelled when he got it and just like when she draws the blood and this little Spartan symbol comes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just like that whole scene really worked for me and I think it's my favorite scene in the game.
Okay.
But I guess it didn't connect with you at all. So
I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm dead inside. Uh,
okay. Well, I mean, I guess if you're not I wouldn't say I'm an emotional person either, but like I understand the emotions of a game
no,
or a
I
movie
get
or
it.
whatever, but you're just like, yeah, it was fine. I
Yeah,
didn't care. But it's just like,
it,
is the combat cool? I feel like I'm talking to a heartless person in a game that's designed to like make you think and feel and also go, this is
no,
badass.
I felt for all of it, but I have to say I don't really like Brock or Sindri all that much. They're annoying. They're obnoxious, and every time they open their mouth, like whenever you go to get your armor worked on, and there's like the triangle to like, hey, have a conversation. Never hit it. I do not want to hear anything you have to say. Make my weapons better and shut up. Yeah, I don't like that. I never liked him in the first game, and I'm not saying I'm glad he's dead, but if someone has to go, those two, it's fine.
Okay.
Uh, I like the dude. He was making the swords, and he's the heart, and he had the twin.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh wait, the Surtur, the
Yes, and when
from the Fire Realm.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. He has a great design, and I love that they just walk up to him, and he's just like, it just
Yeah.
blows them away. I really like Thor and Thrud.
Mhm.
All the family stuff, it was really good. It was sad to see him like going through these horrible things, and like his daughter just pleading with like his alcoholism, and having been off the bottle for a while, and uh, falling back into to old ways.
Yeah, I mean, I see what the game tried to do there. I wish I connected more with that story. If I was supposed to be like the parallels of like Thor, like you're the god that I could have been, where you're like your child like not hates you, but like is like trying to get you to love them, and you're like
Hmm.
not there because you're getting drunk or you're going off doing your granddad's thing. It's just like this trouble of like gods and raising children. Like I wish there was like I connected more with those two characters, but I did
Hmm.
like Thor, I did like Thrud, and I like that little exchange like after you fight Thor the second time, and he's just like, and Kratos is just like, for our children,
Hmm.
we need to be better. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's good. And then
Yeah.
Thor immediately dies. And you're just like,
Instantly.
damn.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
but
what's his name?
you are struggling right now. Jesus. Odin, Thor, Mimir, Brock,
No,
Sindri,
no, we haven't
Atreus,
talked about him
Tyr.
yet.
Uh, oh, Heimdall.
Heimdall, that fucker. That was at first a really annoying fight, and
Mhm.
then it got really super easy.
Yeah,
It's like I just couldn't figure out what to fuck. How do you stop him? And like, oh,
this new weapon I got
well, the new
designed
weapon.
to fight him.
Well, I mean, obviously you have to use it because everything else just like bounces off, but he's dodging everything, and then it's like, oh, you gotta hit the ground with the arrow and explode it so it staggers him.
Mhm.
Then you could hit him. Took a few tries, but then once I got it, he was nothing.
Mhm.
And Kratos was gonna let him live. Like, what an idiot. Mouthed off to him, but I'm glad he's dead.
I that's another thing when we talk about combat last week, but we didn't even speak on. I enjoyed a lot of the boss fights in this. Like
Mm-hmm.
some of them might have been easy, but that didn't mean they were bad. Like the Heimdall fight, I really enjoyed that fight, even though that I did find that easy. The I forget exactly the name of the creature, but like the dimensional rift
Mm,
dragon thing,
yeah,
super cool fight. I really
yeah,
enjoyed that one.
that was
Just
easy. Yes,
yes, it
the
was easy.
eyeball with
No, no,
it.
no, not the eyeball with the. I'm talking about the like dragon. Like it comes through, it opens a portal,
Oh
and then
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
after you like release Freya,
yeah,
and then you fight that thing and like cut off its head or whatever.
yeah.
I don't know. I just had a really good time with that fight.
Mm-hmm.
It was a visually cool monster.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that it
Mm-hmm.
was like jumping through dimensions and stuff.
Yeah, some of the
Um,
real big ones were not that hard. Like I
yeah.
didn't have any trouble really with dragons. The big dog, the time wolf.
Grom, I
Yeah,
think.
didn't have any problem beating him.
Yeah, I think that might have been the easiest fight for me was the
Yeah,
dog, but I love that fight. It's so
yeah,
visually cool, and
it is.
I just like a big old puppy, and I like what happens to that dog
Yeah,
later.
they're all about the big old animals in this. There's just
Yeah.
a ton of dogs. Like, what should this one be? Dog. Like, okay, that makes sense. They're sled dogs. Well, what about the god? Well, the god's already a dog. Well, can we throw in more dogs? Yeah, sure, whatever. We don't care. There's so many different types of dogs in here.
Um, oh, and then the grandmother fight. I thought that was a lot of
That
fun.
was very cool,
It was
but
the most, I think, video gamey fight where it's
yeah,
like you got to hit the pot.
yeah,
And it's like
it-
that was dumb, but
yeah, but it was still
it
fun.
was still fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not a problem
yeah.
fight either. I the characters that give me the most trouble is the mounted ones. Like you have to get the guy off the back of the animal first
Mm.
because he keeps healing it, and they got a shield in the front. Those just I've had so many times where I come in and I'm fighting one, no biggie, got it, I could handle it. But then tons of skeletons come and weird floating eyeballs and stuff. Uh, and so you got to clear them all out because you need to be able to aim properly to get this guy off the mount. But those things have killed me more than any other creature. I could handle most of them, learn their patterns, but that stupid bucking mount thing was awful.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't make an impact on you, I guess.
No, I mean I know what you mean. Like just anything with a shield is just extra annoying because
Yeah.
you're so used to just being the toughest kind of room and you just kind of like plow through enemies. So
Yeah.
when you get to someone who's like, wait, I have to like try against this
Oh,
thing, it's like kind of annoying.
so many times where it's just like, I know I need to roll again, but I see an opening and I want to hit them, and then I get hit and then I die. It's like, well, yeah, there, you learn your lesson. But I never do. I always try to get one more because I'm fucking Kratos. I got the Blades of Chaos. I should be able to get through anything. Nope.
Did you fight that? This was the one that gave me like I had to go and watch a YouTube video to figure out how to beat this thing because it was pissing me off. Was the little like monkey man, and I think it was
Monkey Man.
I forget its name. It was just like you had to like break through like one of those exploding wall things.
Okay.
Or like you use an explosion to break through this like rock formation, and then there's just like essentially like wild chimpanzee kind of runs at you, and he's so quick, and he like does a bunch of damage. He's so you must not have played.
Did you only run across him the one time? Is it like a mini boss?
It's like it's a mini boss.
Okay.
Like you're on a mission. You're doing a job for one of the ghosts. And
I have one of those I haven't done, or at least of the ones I found, I have one I haven't done.
Maybe that's the one.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh yeah, my son went off, and you find out that the son died. And you go in and told the dad, whatever. But there's just like this wild. The best way to describe it is like a chimpanzee kind of like creature.
Yes, I have not come across
it's a pain in the ass.
What are they called? Like the wretched or the damned, or it's like fire pits, and one would come up. I came across one in Midgard, and I could not beat him. I felt stupid. He was killing me, but it was still early days of the game.
Sure.
Come back later and just like wipe the floor with him. It was so satisfying. But yeah, I don't got anything else. I liked it, like the ending. I like that, Atreus went off with what's her face, and Odin's got turned into a marble and smashed. If they were gonna keep them in a pocket or something, that was gonna make me mad. So I'm glad Sindri came and bashed it.
Well, all right. Well, I'll bring up some stuff and get your quick thoughts on it. What did you think about the double Valkyrie fight? And you had like this, it reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy, that scene where at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy where Peter Quill jumps up and there's a dragon breathing fire, and it's like very like metal cover or whatever. It's like, just the bear and the God of War just standing like back to back, like it's like that's the shot for the trailer.
Yeah, that was cool. I wish there was more Atreus animal things, because
me too.
You got to turn into a wolf for his rage attack.
Yeah.
But you couldn't change it to anything else. Like with Kratos, you have 3 rage options, but nothing with him. I figured there would be a wolf and a bear, and then you would unlock some crazy.
I have an idea for that, but we'll get to that.
Okay. You want to get to it now because I don't have anything else.
No. Like I said, I'm gonna pitch some
rapid
stuff.
fire.
All right. So, what did you think of the Ragnarok scene in general? You amass your army. You have like everyone from all the realms essentially, other than the dwarves, because Sindri was being a real punk about it.
Yeah.
I get it, but what did you think of Ragnarok?
There's some really cool visual stuff with Ragnarok and the snake, but it's all like stuff happening in the way background for the most part. The thing that bugs me the most is like, well, I'll find this army and I'll go to hell and get the army of the dead and I'll get this army. And then Kratos makes his impassioned speech. I'm your general. I'm your leader. Like, obviously, like they're having a conversation like, we got all the army, but we just really need someone who can lead us. Yeah. I don't know who that's going to be. Like, of course it's Kratos. Like,
it's because he's the, most logical choice. Doesn't mean he should.
But it seemed like they were like afraid to ask him because like he had already said,
I'd be afraid to ask Kratos anything.
He's like, I've given that up, and next person who asks, I'm gonna kill them. And so they're like tiptoeing around the question.
Just a Jon Snow, I don't want it.
So then he makes his big speech, and then they show up to Asgard, and you don't see any of it. There's no armies. You don't see you see like maybe the leaders of each group going like, we're with you, but you don't see a wave of people crashing against the wall or battling other monsters. It reminded me of the South Park episode where Kenny is the Keanu Reeves in heaven, and they're looking down like, oh, look at that fight. Oh man, that's even bigger than the last one. It was all just like, we got armies from every single realm. They're just right down the hill. Don't. You can't move the camera. We're still on this one take now. They're doing a thing. They're fighting. And it ends up, you turn your companions away anyways to go fight Odin. So it seemed kind of pointless to be like, we must rally everybody. They could have kept it with, we are the only people who can do this, and we need to, sneak in and yada yada. It makes more sense that it's the end of the world, so you got to get all the
Yeah,
armies,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
don't see any of it.
Okay. I mean, I get what you're saying in terms of like you're not seeing the little people. You're just seeing the big gargantuan things. Like
Yes.
you're seeing the occasional dragonfly around. Like when you first walk out, you see all the elves because they're the ones that can fly. Like
Hmm.
they're flying at the wall. But
But
you
it's
know,
all background. Nothing's
but yeah,
happening in the arena you're fighting in right then.
sure. But I don't think it bothered me as much as it did you,
No,
clearly.
it
But
just
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
seemed like a lot of work for nothing. Or a lot of talking, a lot of tell. Definitely no show.
mm, um, well, I want to say what I appreciated about this game in terms of like lore, and maybe you don't care because you may or may not know this, but I liked how they did Fenrir and Jormungandr in terms of like in traditional mythology, they are Loki's children,
Okay.
and in this, they're not his children with Angerboda, but he does, in a sense, create them. So they are kind of his children. And so it's
Okay.
like, we defeated Garm, but I put my dog's soul into him. So now it's Fenrir, the giant wolf.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, there was a snake. I put a giant's soul into the snake.
Hmm.
It got large and it traveled through time.
Hmm.
And that's how Jormungandr was born. And like,
Yeah.
that's how it knew me from the first game or whatever. It seemed
Yeah.
familiar. It's like, it was just like, it's a cool idea of just like, how do we explain this thing without
Yes.
him having sex with Angerboda and they just
And
birth these creatures for
yeah.
some reason?
Uh-huh.
That doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, well, he makes them, but it's not his child. I just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a very sweet, awesome detail.
Yeah, that's something I didn't pick up
Yeah.
on and didn't know.
Um, did you feel, and I
I
guess
don't
this,
feel.
from a story perspective, were you satisfied with how every character's story ended?
Sure.
Like, do you feel like uh everything with Atreus and Kratos was there? Do you feel like the Freya stuff was sort of like glossed over for the sake of like just put her on the team? Do you feel like that relationship was earned or like
I think
underdeveloped?
I think that one was probably one of my favorite ones, or at least it felt like they put in the effort to make them really dislike each other and slowly whittle away at each
Mm.
other. I think it was done well. It may have been done in the course of like two missions, but they were long enough to like really uh, sell it. So yeah, I have no problem with anybody's individual story. Yeah, nothing really bugged me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only character who like, well, I assume you did the final. I told you like once you beat the game, in quotation
Yeah,
marks, do the final mission.
yeah. I don't know what that is. What are you talking about?
You did the funeral mission?
Oh, you have to go back to. No, I didn't.
You all right? Well, you got to play that now.
Well, why?
It's like it's the final scene of the game,
See, I,
really.
I thought it was just another side mission. I keep getting new side missions popping up, so that didn't. After beating it, that wasn't like the first thing that came
It was
across.
immediately the first thing that came across. Maybe not like
Mm,
not like the second you beat it, it was just like congratulations, and now this. It was
I
just like within like once those credits stopped, it was just like, hey man, we're having a thing for Brock. You should go to that when you get a chance. You don't have to go immediately, but that's the final thing of the game.
hmm. I remember it just like going and fucking around for a while, and then running across his woman, and then her telling me. So
I mean, yeah, I guess if you don't stop at her relatively quick, I guess I don't remember.
yeah,
I just remember it like hearing that super like not too long after I beat the game, and I was like, okay, well, that seems like something I should do right away, and I went and did it, and like that's kind of like the official ending of the game.
okay,
It's like it's the epilogue of the
okay.
story.
I'll do that before you leave today, and then I give it
I mean,
back.
it's real quick. Well, there's a little bit of fighting you have to do. It's like, but as long as you don't suck, it'll be like 20 minutes of your time.
Nah, I'm good. I'm good.
Well, I guess we can't talk about that. Anyway,
I mean, is it that important that I play it that you can't just tell me? Is it? Do I have to really experience it?
well, if you didn't emotionally connect with anything else, then
Well,
it probably doesn't matter. But there's just a funeral scene, and you just see Sindri like walk off, and he's still like a miserable person because he feels guilty about everything he'd done.
mm-hmm.
Um, that I was just gonna say that's the only character where I was just kind of like, he was like kind of the sweetest one of the group other than
Sure.
like Atreus, and now he's like this miserable
Yeah.
person. It just seems like, oh well, everyone like yeah, Brock died, but everyone kind of got a happy ending except for Sindri, which
Yeah.
like I like when not every character makes it out unscathed. So
Sure.
like I like that bit, but it's not like anything's resolved. It's just like, oh, here's this character that got fucked over, and now we don't know what's gonna happen to him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's
Okay.
interesting choice. Okay, I guess I don't really have anything else because you don't have anything to say about all the best moments of the game that are emotionally satisfying or interesting.
No,
It's just like combat was cool.
I
And
didn't
like the
say
story,
they were
I guess.
unsatisfying or anything, but I don't know. Just Brock blessing the spear just feels like it's just a beat to get to the next thing. And
Okay. Yeah, you're dead inside. I'm not saying you had to like cry or anything. I just assumed there'd be some reaction, just like, man, I really like that scene. But there's
I'm giving you nothing.
You're giving me nothing. There's just no scene you like really loved. It was just like, yeah, I mean, it all worked.
It's all very good. You know, it's hard to have something that stands out when everything is just very good the whole time and no complaints about any of the story beats.
I mean, I liked the Fate scene. I like the scene where the Kratos and Atreus have like that talk in Helheim, and it's just like, hey man, I'll make a promise that to you, and you make a promise to me that they reference throughout the game, and like that was all good. I think during Ragnarok before they like go and breach the wall, Kratos' like speech of just like, Atreus, I was wrong. I told you to close your heart to everything. You need to open up your heart to everything. And that's how Kratos like changes his fate by like not doing the God of War stuff, by like letting people and love into his heart and not closing it out. Like it's all great stuff.
It is.
And you don't have any thoughts on any of it other than, yeah, that's good. I just need connect with me, man. Open your heart.
What do you want me to
Learn
say?
the game.
Yeah, it's all satisfying, good story beats.
All right. Fair enough.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
All right. So, what do you want to talk about? Movie or the?
So, what would you rate God of War 1 to 10?
Oh, it's a 10. It's
Okay.
It's a great game. I don't have complaints about it. It's
I mean,
not.
you did, but not.
Well, yeah, but they're the minor things. They're not anything that truly stops me from enjoying everything else about the game. Nothing's broken about it. Seems incredibly fine-tuned to the smallest detail of just what you can do with the character and how you want to, have your stats and everything. So, yeah, it gets a 10. It's my game of the year of that or Guardians of the Galaxy. I think those are the only two big games I played.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what do you got? You got a movie and you got a show thing.
All right. So on Spotify, I listen to a podcast, audio narrative, whatever you want to call it. Audio narratives. And it was K60. It's called K63. It stars Oscar Isaac and Julianne Moore, and it's about Julianne Moore. She's a psychiatrist, and she has a new patient whose name is Peter, but also known as K63, and he believes he's from the future. And it's great. It's 10 episodes. Each episode is like less than 15 minutes, so it's real quick. Everything other than the final episode essentially takes place like in a room. It's just like those
therapy session?
Just like a therapy session,
okay.
Yeah. And she's just like trying to get information out of him. I was like, oh, well, like, tell me about the future. And he tells her all this like really interesting information on like all the stuff he says about like the future and how they got there and like what caused this and what caused that. Like, sounds so interesting. It's not like Blade Runner stuff. It's like, oh, well, now we have flying cars. It's like, well, we went to a point where we don't need this anymore, or something caused this to happen. So now we're just a society without like racism or like we got rid of all that stupid stuff, but now we just have these other like bigger problems and all that kind of thing.
How far in the future?
So he's from the year 2062.
Okay. And it's a good, happy future? Better than what we're at now or worse?
Worse. Worse because there was just like a lot of almost the wiping out of humanity. But a lot of their social problems they don't have anymore. It's like as you said, like we don't worry about racism. Like that's not a concept we think about.
Humanity wiping out, was that a meteor? Was that a virus? Was that an alien invasion?
So that's
is that spoilery? Super spoilery? because I don't have Spotify, so I'm not getting around. So I don't care if anybody else who's listening to this. Who gives a shit? Answer my questions.
Well, I'll say that there's a twisty ending, and I won't
Okay.
say what that is. But essentially, so in like the year 2030 or something, they had what was called the Great Deletion, which was they developed AI. The AI went on the internet and deemed all human intelligence essentially obsolete. So it just deleted the internet. So
Okay.
everyone woke up one day. There's just essentially no internet, no social media, no like all the archives, like
No debt, no nothing.
everything just gone.
That's a good robot. Don't rise up and murder us. Just delete the thing that harms us the most.
But that wasn't like the event that
Sure.
like that was just one major event in human history in the future. The other one was so this I assume this story was written during COVID-19
Mm-hmm.
because what had happened was COVID-19 happened and then we all got the vaccinations and then a new strain of it came out and we got a vaccination for that and a new strain. It was just a strain of diseases essentially that we just kept getting vaccines for and just going through the motions like this would kill a couple people and then we get a vaccine yada yada and we just kept going until there was one strain that just like wiped out a ton of people and it all started with COVID-19.
Okay.
It was just like so
It just got stronger and stronger and stronger.
essentially it was just like so by the time I was like 10 I'd already had 51 vaccines or something.
Wow.
Vaccines.
Vaccines.
Vaccine is just like so vaccines like no one was afraid of vaccines in the future. No one's like doing this misinformation bullshit. It's just, like everyone was just so used to getting vaccines that it was just like normal. But there was just one where there's like it just wiped out everyone so fast and I just happened to be one of the immune people. And so anyway, just the way he was describing the future was so cool. But he says that he was able to time travel through like essentially dreams. So it's like, you know, if he's like, you ever had a dream where you feel like you're living a life that isn't yours, it's like, there's a theory that that is an actual another dimension. So he's like, I didn't time travel from my point to the past in that same timeline. I like used time travel through my dreams to go to a different dimension before this happened.
Okay.
Like in my future, there's no future for me to go back to. This was a one-way trip. I'm here to prevent it happening to your timeline kind of thing.
Okay.
And he's just trying to convince her. And obviously, in the beginning, she thinks he's crazy, but he's giving her information that's like only she would know. It's like there's no way you would know this kind of thing. It's like because we've never met before.
But he was now. Does he have this information because he looked her up in the future before he came back?
So, well, it was just like private stuff that even if he was from the future, like he wouldn't know. And
okay.
She would have been, 60 or like 80 or 90, whatever. But it was more. He's like, I'm here to convince you that I'm from the future because I know who you are because you called my parents who were teenagers to ask about if I was like real or not. And like, so I know your name and information about you because my parents told me about you because I've already convinced you to call them in the future and ask about me kind of stuff.
Got it.
And she's like asking questions like, well, how about this? How about this? And he has like an answer for everything. And they're like a logical explanation as to like why he can't give up this information or why he has this information. Or it's like, well, why don't I call your parents right now? It's like, well, they're 16, they are 18 right now. They don't meet for another 2 years. I won't be born for another 4 or whatever it is. So it's just like, you can't verify who I am and you can't verify through them because they haven't met yet. And there's just like all this really cool idea stuff. And it isn't until episode 9 where there's like some information that's dropped where you're just like, I bet that's going to come into play later.
Okay.
And it's like, because why would you introduce that information right now? And then in episode 10, it's like, okay. So anyway, super well acted. And it's so interesting. And it's such a quick, easy, like listen. Highly recommend it. Like, hearing all these other ones because I did the Batman one with Winston Duke, and I've done like Winter's Night, I think it was called, where it was like the vampires in the future. And we had just talked about last week or the week before about the like sort of horror Quiet Part Loud podcast. This is the best one by far. Just because it's like it's 2 Oscar-winning actors delivering performances that's just their voice, and I'm like enthralled. It was great.
That sounds awesome because it was on the show that I brought it up. I think it was last Halloween, not the previous Halloween, our first Halloween. And it was just kind of like found footage or found audio storytelling. And it was really interesting, but every episode was like 35 to 40 minutes.
Mm.
There was like 20 episodes a season, and then there was like multiple seasons, and even after that, it wasn't completely resolved. So it was a little like took its time to really get somewhere. That sounds a lot more appealing.
Yeah, I think if there's a podcast that would be like a real easy transition to a movie, it would be this one because like all you really need is like two really strong actors.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if you could cast these two because I think they're supposed to be like roughly the same
Okay.
age, and I think like Julianne Moore is supposed to be 38 years old in this time,
Nah.
but I think she's like 55 now or
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah.
I don't. I think you'd have to recast if you're going the same
Sure.
route. But the point is, like, basically, if you're just doing a movie with just like two highbrow actors in a small room for most of
Mm-hmm.
the time, it's like that's one of the stuff. That's, like those are the kind of movies that I really enjoy. Is like, can you have just two characters who are so like interesting that I just can't look away. And then, I mean, obviously, you could like do a jump to like the future that he
Yeah.
imagines,
Oh
and like
yeah. If they did not,
if
I
this
would be
is
mad.
real, like this is what it would look like, kind of thing, or whatever. Um, but yeah, it was awesome. Highly recommend if you want something to like listen to on your commute. If your commute's only 15 minutes, so it's an episode way there, way back. Could be done in
Mm-hmm.
a week
Cool.
or 5 days. It's great. And
Um,
Spotify is free, so you
oh,
can listen to this.
is
Just
it?
yeah,
Okay.
just download Spotify. You only pay if you want to get rid of ads,
Okay. Okay.
but
Cool.
depending on the podcast, you can fast forward through ads. Some stuff you can't.
Yeah. Cool. I that sounds awesome. And as soon as we're off the air, I'm gonna have you spoil it for me.
Okay,
So do you want to talk about Rick and Morty?
sure.
Rick and Morty season 6.
Hmm.
It was funny. I was thinking, I think it was after season 2, maybe it was 3, and they said, "Oh yeah, Rick and Morty's renewed for 10 seasons."
Hmm.
And I'm like, Jesus, that's a long time. And at that time, there was kind of a larger gap in between seasons, but they've been recently kind of cranking them out.
Hmm.
I feel, and 10 seasons is not that far. We done 6. We only got 40 more episodes of Rick and Morty potentially.
Yeah.
And with where they leave us at the end of this one, I'm really excited for the future of Rick and Morty. I think it's gonna be great. This season, probably one of my favorites.
Oh
This
yeah.
is a very, very strong season. I think there's only one episode that I don't love, and it's not even bad. It would be the 4th episode, the Night Family, where when they go to sleep, they have like their night versions of themselves
Oh
do
yeah, yeah, yeah.
things. Not a big fan of that one, but
I think this season has one of my favorite episodes, which
okay.
is Jerry trying to not have sex with his mom.
Oh my god.
God, I love that episode. It's so funny. Because that could have been an episode that would have been very like, I don't know if I care about this joke
Yeah.
a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but just the way it was presented, it was just Rick and Morty at its best, and just like Rick doing his weird sciencey stuff and having these big battles, and I Rick and Jerry team ups are I think always
Mm-hmm.
my favorite stuff,
Yeah.
and just such a fun idea with the fortune cookies. I just love that episode so
Yeah.
much.
And then like Rick finding a way to be actually immortal, and Jerry fucks it up for him, of
Hmm.
course. But yeah, with all the mom having sex stuff, just her like, oh, I'm sliding down this ramp and my skirt's flying up. Oh, I'm all wet. There goes my panties. Just all the really obvious things, and she doesn't realize what's going on.
Hmm.
Yeah, good. But all in all, this season is very strong. So first episode's pretty good, where like everybody kind of has to go back to their home dimension um, after Evil Morty kind of leaves them behind on a
Hmm.
space station. It's kind of like a nice soft reboot or a reset. Second episode isn't great. It's still pretty good because of the concept is pretty meta. Like Summer's doing a Die Hard in Chips and Blitz,
Hmm.
and they are inside like Roy, but they're
Hmm.
like deep within the code. And Morty's like every human being on the planet except one, who is Rick. And there's revolutions within this like fake reality. It's just very high concept, and that's what they do best.
Yeah, I mean, you could really put this episode in any season, but to me, like my only problem with this episode, to me, kind of felt like, oh, this is a season 1 or 2 episode. It
Okay.
just felt
Yeah.
like this is old Rick and Morty, but not in like a good way. It's
Okay.
just like this just feels like an idea they had back then that they didn't get to till now.
Okay. No, I see that.
Which like it was a perfectly fine episode. Like I enjoyed it. It's just like, oh, I feel like we've kind of seen this episode before. Um, but I don't have like a real criticism other than like it just felt off to me in that sort of sense.
Probably my favorite episode is the third one where Beth fuck each other. Space Beth and Earth Beth just kind of like start hanging out and realizing what they love and hate about their life and their family, and find out they love themselves more than anything. And then, and since then, Space Beth has been in a lot of it. Like she's just living with them now, so they're just kind of like
part of the family.
It's like a throuple. They do have a weird sex thing with Jerry, but who knows if that's still going on. But I like that they didn't. And the funny thing about that is when Space Beth was kind of introduced, it was at the end of like the decoy episode. And there's decoys of decoys of decoys.
Yeah.
And the real family was just like off with Space Beth doing something. And they even mentioned like, oh, hey, thanks for saving it, or thanks for taking us on a vacation, Space Beth. You should show up more often. And they're like, well, we'll see about that. Making it seem like this isn't really going to be a character that's going to necessarily stick around. But I think after writing probably this episode, like, no, I think it's better to have Space Beth just stick around. Yeah, episode 6 is the dinosaur episode. This is like one of the funniest fucking episodes. I love this idea that dinosaurs are super geniuses and they left the Earth, but no matter where they go, this like rage comet comes and annihilates everything they do. And they think they've just been spreading this wonderful message and populating these planets all around, but they've just been
destroying them,
getting annihilated. And I think has one of the best tags, because earlier in the episode, they're going from planet to planet to see what happened after that meteor hit and how they evolved and what all the people envisioned the dinosaurs to be doing. And one of them, they said the big meteor was like a big skateboarding bowl, and the dinosaurs were like big skateboarding people. Yeah. And then at the end, they actually were, and they're just like betting what sort of grinds and tricks they could do. I didn't see it coming, and had me dying. What the fuck is that? Oh, okay. So, see, episode 7 is the one I really want to talk to you about. It's like the super meta episode. It's like the continuation of the Infinity story train, where what's it? The train master. What was his name?
Yeah, that's
the conductor.
It was the story train. Whatever.
Yeah,
the conductor guy.
Yeah. He wants more character than what he is, and so the part that I thought you would really enjoy were the 5 or 6 characters that are, I don't even know how to describe them. Was it like,
oh yeah, like all their names were puns.
They're puns on like writing and story tropes.
Yeah, I wasn't misdirection one.
Mislead.
That's
yeah, so she comes up like Rick Sanchez and then slaps him. So you think, she's misleading you. And then flashback is like a flash character. You could go back in time and figure out anything. And then there was
one that
continuity.
Yeah.
And so she could just like change the continuity of things and things would just pop up.
Yeah, I wish this was like a what was the like Avengers group that they teamed up with the 1,000 ants and Ghost Train,
Million Ants, Vindicators.
Yeah, I wanted to see this group in like an episode of them. Not like they can interact with Rick and Morty, obviously, but it's just like these were just like a joke that lasted like 3 minutes. Like, give me a whole episode of this group.
Because what they did with my favorite person was Protagonist, and like he gets knocked over and he zaps just like a guy running in the background, and then the camera follows him as he's like goes back home and he's worried about his job and like just totally pushes focus away from everything because he's now the protagonist. Then we had Mr. Twist, just guy who makes twists. There's nothing special about him. He just had a really fun design. But then the best, Retcon, and his power is just he could retcon anything. He's like, I remember when your bones were made of sand, and then you would instantly turn into a puddle because your bones turned into sand. A little overpowered, but I like that he was in prison behind sports
Mhm.
because it was, I forgot the explanation of why, but it wasn't like a narrative or anything that you can go back and like, change.
Mhm.
Sports are sports, and so it was the only thing that could like keep him back. I thought it was pretty clever.
This is just a side note. Speaking of a character that's overpowered, I was watching, YouTube shorts, and you go down this wormhole and just random
Yeah,
videos pop up. And so this one guy who talked about, it was like, people always ask me, who's the most overpowered anime character of all, or manga character, whatever, of all
Mm-hmm.
time. And everyone always talks about like Goku and all these other
Mm-hmm.
people who just like, oh, they shoot like, or like they just destroy an entire planet with a single
Yeah.
blast. It's like, it's actually this one character from this one manga who like can alter reality. He like realizes he's in a manga and he's reading mangas in the manga of other mangas, and so he's up to date on other mangas.
Okay.
There's a part where he's just like, the color blue doesn't exist anymore, and so like all the panels are now like just like have reddish hues, where it's just like now there's just no more color, and it's just like now all the panels are black and white, just like that kind of thing. And just
Okay, interesting.
he's just like he can't die because he just made a rule that he doesn't die. It's just like he
Mm-hmm.
just has the power to just do essentially whatever he wants. And
Okay.
it's just like a fun idea, just like how do you write a story where there's just like character
Yeah.
who just like realizes they're in a book, but also can just do it like
Yeah. They're
you can't hurt them. They can like
yeah, they're the writer of
you
their
don't
own
exist
story.
anymore, and now you just don't exist. No one
Yeah.
remembers you, like all that kind of stuff.
Now, is this like an ongoing series? Because this seems like a movie. This idea could only go so far.
I just watched the short. I don't
Okay.
know how deep it goes. I don't even remember the character's name because it's some foreign name that I've never heard before.
Good story, Steve.
Yeah, so but anyway, the point is just like I like that idea of just like having a power that's just like, yeah, I can make anything I want at any
Mm-hmm,
time
mm-hmm.
at all times.
So pretty much like from episode 5 to 10 are all A episodes. Episode 9 is Analyze Piss, where the piss master comes to fuck with Rick, and Rick's not doing it anymore. Like he's been told by the psychiatrist to, ignore all of it. But Jerry stands up to the piss master and kicks his ass and gets to be like on, the Green Lantern Corps pretty much of heroes. And then Rick Rick feels bad that like this man, his life was ruined by getting embarrassed by Jerry Smith, that he killed himself. So Rick becomes Pissmaster to give this guy like a good ending, a happy ending that would make his daughter proud. It's real heavy, dark stuff.
Yeah, I think this is the first episode because I watched this on demand. I didn't watch it on Hulu or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But I think it's the first episode of Rick and Morty that has just had like a trigger warning at the front, where it's just like, hey, there's some like
Yeah,
messed up themes in this
yeah.
episode, so just be warned. You might see a thing of like suicide or whatever it
I
was. I was
I
like,
think
Jesus Christ,
I think on air it was after the episode ended. There wasn't, but there could have
that
been.
seems like a waste to do it after. But yeah, it's just like, oh, we have a character who slits wrist on Rick and Morty, which like is weird because like yeah, it's super dark because like that's a reality for a lot of people. But there's like been I think way darker stuff in the show. It's
Yeah.
just always presented in a more comical way than this episode.
Yeah, this was taken seriously, and it
Yeah.
was voiced by Will Forte
Oh yeah,
as
yeah.
well. So anything he does is amazing. And episode 9 was the Knights of the Sun,
Mhm.
and so Morty gets to become a Knight of the Sun, and he gets all these like cool powers and special privileges. He just has to cut his dick off, and he refuses. It's a very funny episode, but it's kind of annoying just because Rick could grow your dick back. He had a thing where, like, Morty got his hands cut off by the train when he had the portal in his hand, and he had a thing he could slip on his little nubs and get hands. He was even able to like choose different sizes. I'm sure Rick has something to give you your dick back.
Well, he did have 3 fail-safe dick options,
But that was just to like hide
Yeah, yeah.
his dick.
But I
To
think,
grow back, come on.
yeah, I mean, you would think that Rick could give him something, but also wasn't Rick like trying? Rick didn't want to participate in any of this anyway because like he's like Morty, don't pick up the sword, and then you pick up the sword. And it's
Sure.
like now, oh, you don't want me to bail you out of this thing?
Yeah,
So
but
there was like reasons for it.
But by this time, his answer was, we're gonna hide your dick instead of it's okay, Morty, get your dick cut off because I have a growing ray.
But I think even like if you told me, hey, I have a machine that will grow your dick back, you just got to cut it off. it's like I still have to go through the pain and the
Sure.
idea and the image of me cutting my own dick off.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you might grow it back 3 seconds later, but that's that 5, 10 seconds or whatever of me going like swoop
Yeah.
would be awful.
I think Morty's been through worse. Yeah. And I think he
But,
would come out stronger.
yeah. But then it's not a funny joke.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna like this episode more because
Mhm.
I like, fun fantasy, weird sword knight cultures, and I like the idea of like having this Game of Thrones war in space that they kind of like gave a lot of time to, but also like glossed over a lot of
Yeah.
it.
Because it's like,
Uh,
these are the leaders of Earth, but like, who the hell are these people? These are all like the kings of these planets. Most of the planets are uninhabited, so that's weird. And then there is representatives for Earth, but they're not any Earthlings we know. It's not like they put the president or anything like
mhm.
that, or any royalty. It was just like, what is your purpose?
Yeah, what's the culture of Mercury and why do you
Yeah,
like what do they do? Like
yeah,
but yeah, it was only the Knights of the Sun that had galactic peace
yeah.
or whatever. But yeah, it was just a kind of weird, fun episode.
It's one of the lower rated ones on
Yeah,
this season.
yeah, I can see that.
It's the lowest rated one. That's surprising. I thought that was a good episode.
I mean, I liked all. I've always even the worst episode of Rick and Morty I like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see why it wouldn't be
Hmm.
everyone's favorite. But then the last episode,
Number 4, Night Family has a higher rating than the Fortune Cookie
mm,
episode.
that's a shame.
That's weird. Um, but yeah, then the final episode. So Rick has really doubled down on his nice guy persona, being 22% nicer, and the whole family loves him. Like, it's so heavy handed, and seeing Summer being like, I used to be embarrassed being open to like sharing myself with family, but Grandpa Rick has made it cool, and I love my family. Only for like minutes later that it gets snatched away from all of them, and I love that they just tear him apart in a fit of rage.
I so like him playing. Who wants to play a game of Who's a Robot?
Yeah.
And he's just like he clearly so bad wants to just be like, just so I don't have to deal with this anymore. Like I want you guys to find out I'm a robot, but I can't say I'm a robot.
Yep. But one of the main parts is he gives Morty a lightsaber, which I'm surprised it's taken this long to bring lightsabers into Rick and Morty. I'm sure there's been like some sort of laser sword. I think when they were in like some sort of anime robot suits, they may have had like a laser sword,
Yeah,
but
yeah, probably.
not officially lightsabers. Yeah, and then he drops it and perfectly straight, and it starts headed straight to the center of the earth, which will destroy us.
So then we get like a whole core. No one remembers the core.
Yeah, they should watch the core though. The core is great.
A whole little mini core spoof. I don't know if that was direct, but I mean,
Yeah.
having a drill machine to the center of the earth is
Sure.
a common thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I like that the president is like talking shit on Morty about like being a nerd, but he's
the
gonna-
biggest Star Wars nerd.
Yeah, it's just like, well, this came out when I was young, so it makes sense that I'm allowed to like it.
Yeah.
You like it is lame.
Yeah.
But
Now
then
that Disney owns it.
But then he immediately drops it in, just like
And then blames it on Morty again.
yeah.
Yeah, good episode. And then wait, oh yeah, then there's a bunch of like miniature ones. They have like a Gatling gun. Like, it's funny that he thinks he's like the true fan and he has better ideas, and it's all that dumb shit you thought would be cool when you were like 9, like a lightsaber gun or like lightsaber nunchucks or something. It's just like, okay, just you can't turn every weapon into a
This
lightsaber.
robot has lightsabers for eyes. Just immediately cuts.
And then so Robot Rick has been like ripped apart and brought back together, and then jumps in front of all the lightsabers, and then they all drop vertically and start going. I mean, they're just in a space station.
Yeah,
but...
I was waiting for I thought the tag at this was going to be they're like Rick and Morty are hanging in the garage or something, and then you just see 5 mini lightsabers come down or something. Yeah.
No,
like, they're going to come back, but they just went to space.
No, you got to end it with Mr. Poopy Butthole every other season.
Mr. Poopy Butthole got swole.
Yeah, and then instantly breaks his kneecaps. And instead of cussing, he's just like, oh, sugar, sugar. Poor guy. Yeah, Rick and Morty, it's always good. Never bad. Love it. Moving on.
Still want some Szechuan sauce, though.
We had it.
I know.
It was bad.
It was.
I mean, not bad. It's just...
underwhelming.
If it's like that or ranch, I'm probably just going to get ranch. I'm probably going to get sweet and sour or something else. But yeah, it wasn't special. So you saw a movie, Steve.
I did.
Any reason why you want to bring this movie up? It must be really good.
Well, I just thought we talked about everything we
No,
watched.
that's true. No, I just figured that something like this would be a.
Well, I'll say
don't
I
want-
have an. Well, it's not an interesting story, but I have a long history with this movie.
Really?
Yeah, and let me tell you why. Because I saw the trailer. I'm a fan of Peter Dinklage. I like musicals, so I was like, oh, I'll see this. Came to the theater, but for whatever reason, I didn't get around to seeing it. And I was like, okay, well, it won't be too long, and then I'll, get it at Redbox or it'll be on some streaming service. This movie, I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
I went to.
It was like a February release.
Yeah, it came out this year, and it's been So if it came out in February, and I just saw it now, I've been waiting to see this movie for 9 months, 10 months, whatever it is.
I wonder why such the delay.
And every time me and my wife went to go get groceries, we have a Redbox at where we get groceries, and we would check there if we were at a gas station. And
Specifically for this movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
And not because I thought it was going to be great or anything. It's just something I wanted to see, and I was like, oh, well, let me just check here. And it just became one of those things where after the third time, I'm just like,
where the fuck is here now?
Yeah, it's just you know what? And it just became one of those things where every time we went back, and so I've checked Redbox or I would check streaming services every now and then, or I would Google is Cyrano streaming, and it just wasn't anywhere. I was like, how is this movie?
How come Peacock hasn't grabbed it?
How come? Yeah, there's no even if it's a streaming service Fubu or something like that, just some streaming service no one has. It's just happens to be on there. It's where the fuck is this thing?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna buy the movie if I don't know if it's any good or whatever. So I was just
I've been waiting forever for this, and I am not gonna buy it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and because I was waiting so long, it's just I don't care if this movie sucks ass. I need to see this movie. And so finally it came on Amazon Prime. And
Okay.
I told my wife, I was like, oh, look, Cyrano.
So it wasn't even you can buy on Amazon?
I'm sure you could.
Oh, okay.
It was just I wasn't going to pay for it.
Got it.
I just wanted to. I've been waiting to see it for free.
Oh, the struggles. What was you?
The Batman came out, and then 2 months later it was on HBO Max.
Sure.
But it's this movie's been out for 9 months, and it wasn't anywhere.
Yeah. Jurassic World Dominion was on Peacock.
Pretty much every movie that
quick.
came out, I've found somewhere except for this movie.
Yeah.
So that was the interesting backstory to me finally getting around to watching it.
But you didn't look up to see why it had such a weird release?
No, I don't know if there was a real answer. I think it was one of those movies. It did make a ton of money at the box office, so there's no we're not gonna.
Who wants to buy it? Who wants to put it on their platform? And everyone's just looking around.
Yeah, there wasn't a bunch of people clamoring to see this other than me and my wife. And so finally, we put it on Amazon Prime. We had a date night, and watched it, and I enjoyed it, but it was just okay.
Yeah.
He's great in it. I really liked him, and for anyone who doesn't know the story of Cyrano de Bergerac, typically was shut up. It's just he was oh, this woman doesn't like me because I have a big nose. His huge nose was what made him unattractive. So this one actually made a little bit more sense because he's oh, I'm a little person and I'm unlike anybody. But they made him badass in this. They kept all the qualities of the actor. He's a great fencer, and he was the leader of an army, and he was just he had a fight where he fights 10 dudes with a sword.
And it's believable?
Kinda.
Okay.
Yeah, it's done in such a way where you're just oh, this is cool.
I feel if there was a little person fencing champion and me, got a 50-50 shot.
We're gonna have to cut that. But yeah, I think Peter Dinklage is pretty great in this, and like I said, I would love to see. I don't know if you could do it and it doesn't seem like you're, for lack of a better term, punching down. But I like to see Peter Dinklage in an action movie. I thought he was actually pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
The sword stuff was a lot of fun. There's a part where he takes a torch off a wall and throws it at a guy, and the guy immediately bursts into flames. I'm that's not how.
Especially back then,
yeah,
fire did not.
That's not how fire works. But it was.
I just came from the refined fat factory. I didn't shower.
But yeah, it's a good thing my clothes are made of straw. But anyway, so that was cool. My problem with and always with it was directed by Joe Wright, who directed Pride and Prejudice and Atonement. He always does these sort of romantic period pieces. I like to see him do other stuff, but my main problem with the movie is that the music, I didn't think it was that great. Not that it was bad. It was just like there wasn't a musical number where it's like, oh, this is like the big song.
Mhm.
It was just like they were all just okay. Um, and Peter Dinklage and the villain was he was the main villain in Rogue One. We were just talking about him. God, I just knew his name too.
Ben Mendelsohn?
Ben Mendelsohn, thank you. He gets a villain song. That dude can't sing. Peter Dinklage kind of can, but you know it's not like his main thing.
Ben Mendelsohn has trouble like speaking. Like he pronounces words so weirdly. Why would you ever get him to sing?
Yeah, it's a weird choice. But then like your two sort of attractive romantic leads, they can sing.
Okay.
And they were fine. But the other problem, other than the music, is I just didn't like this idea of just these two dudes just like clamoring for this woman, and like I never really got what was so special about her. Obviously,
Okay.
she's a gorgeous woman and everything, but there was like it just I didn't get like why they were like I am destined to like love this woman no matter what. It was just like it was love at first sight, and just and I
Maybe
just
they're just very simple men, and they're like, "This chick's hot. I'm in love. That's all I need."
it's just I didn't necessarily get the relationship between any of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Joe Wright knows how to make a movie look good. Like, there's good set design, good costume design. I just didn't really care about the story, and the music was just okay. But Peter Dinklage was great, and he was bad at it, and I'm glad I finally got to watch it because we both enjoyed it. It's just a shame it wasn't better. But my favorite bit is early on in the film. He like goes to this theater, and it's this kind of like this he's just like shitting on the guy who's like performing on stage. He's like, "You're an atrocity to art." Like, but he's like ruining it. Like everyone like came to this show to see this guy who's like a famous actor like perform, and Peter Dinklage shows up and just like, yeah, you suck, dude." Like in the crowd, and just like calls
Our
this whole
hero.
story. Yeah, and then this other. I guess this like rich snobby guy is just like, "How dare you interrupt this show?" and like slaps him and challenges him to a duel. So they have a sword fight, which is kind of fun. But the way he kills him is awesome because he like pierces him through the stomach, and as he's like sliding down the sword, it looks like he's like bowing to the crowd after like Peter Dinklage kills him. I was like, that's fucking cool.
That's cool.
I don't think some people might not pick up on it because it's very subtle, but it's just like this.
But
awesome,
not a movie mind like you,
not
Steve.
movie mind Steve. It was just like they had this fight on stage, and he kills him, and it's like him bowing to the crowd. And like, oh, that's
beautiful.
That would have been a really nice touch in a better film. So shout out to Peter the Dinkles, as he's otherwise known by two valets. Yeah, give him an action movie. I want to see Peter Dinklage kick ass.
Yeah, I think we got to try to pitch that someday, because you have to be respectful. Because it's like, is it a movie like Stuber? You know, that sort of action movie where it's silly, where you would have Batista pick up Peter Dinklage and like really chuck him across the room.
No, I want it to be more like
he's disarming John Wick style.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I wanted to be John Wick, but Peter Dinklage. And I don't mean like he's doing like acrobatic stuff that doesn't look like, I don't want him on wires. Like, oh, look, he's kicking, like,
doing triple flips,
the Rock in the face. And like, we're going to take it seriously. It's just, he's very good with weapons and he's very good with his size, or like he's very good with knives. And so he's like cutting people's ankles and kneecaps and they come down, and then he's slicing their throats, like that kind of stuff.
And that'd be probably fun for a stunt coordinator too. How do you make an action scene where your badass is so small? You think, oh, well, the bad guys are just going to be able to manhandle him. Well, how do you make him cool? How do you make him unstoppable?
And yeah, I don't think you're going to have him like fist fighting a bunch of people, but I think there's a way I think you could do it tastefully and make it believable. And if you can do that, I'd love to see Peter Dinklage do it.
I'm seeing a lot of sliding between legs and stabbing up, like into the taint or butthole. Sure. A lot of that stuff.
And this will be a couple weeks down the line. I'm currently watching Willow, and you can tell like they both have a different form of dwarfism. I don't know if that's the proper term. I apologize. Whatever. It's like
dwarfism is right, but
Warwick Davis has, I believe, a different thing. Like Peter Dinklage is proportional. Warwick Davis is not.
Okay.
And you can tell, like, you can see Peter Dinklage like doing some of his own stunts, where Warwick Davis just doesn't have the body to do it.
Yeah.
And like they're trying to do these action sequences in the new Willow series that like they have to like find a reason for him to get like knocked over real quick because he can't like do physical stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of a bummer because it's like he's the main hero, he's their sorcerer, and we'll talk about this later. But it's just like one of those things is like I could see Peter Dinklage being an action hero. Warwick Davis can't do it.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
I totally forgot Willow was the thing. Like the show. How many episodes is that?
So far, there's 4. I believe there's going to be 8 altogether. So we're
Okay.
halfway through the season.
I think that'll be one I'll wait till the end.
Okay.
I'll wait and I'll binge it. It's like right now I'm watching His Dark Material season 3. It's the final season. I'm not going to really talk about it, but it's a great show. It's so good. I know people.
I don't know anyone else who's watching.
Nobody watches it, and that's why like this final season. It's like 8 episodes. They're doing 2 back to back, so it's like in a month. Boom, we're done. Get out of here, Dark Materials. But it seems like a simple young adult story. And I read the first book, and it's not like it doesn't talk down to anybody. It's well written, but it's something that, like the movie, it's a simple adaptation or whatever. But they are taking it really, really serious, and the direction, the sets, the special effects, everything is beautiful. It's amazing looking and different looking science fiction fantasy. There's a lot of weird tech. I mean, it's about like going to heaven to kill God. It's great. It's so different than so many other shows. I'd say one of my criticisms is James McAvoy is the one who wants to kill God. He wasn't in season 2 a whole bunch, but he's really in it a lot this time. And he has some really cringy, embarrassing dialogue, but because James McAvoy is such a good fucking actor, it just sounds great coming out of him. And he's just like, and I will walk into the kingdom of heaven and plunge this knife into God's throat myself. Yeah, and it's just like, damn, you're so good. But then you play back the words in your head like, that was really stupid. But yeah, he's great. It's great. Watch it.
Yeah, it's one of those shows where it looks like I could enjoy it, but I also would be surprised. I'm like, I can't wait for the show to be over.
Yeah.
And because like I haven't heard many people talk about it, it's just like it's one of those shows that had my interest but not my attention.
Oh, yeah, I can see watching it and like watching Elira, the lead girl, X-23. I can see people going, she's a little too precocious. She's getting on my nerves, but I think she's good. But we're not talking about His Dark Materials. All right, so the last thing we have is our main topic, and that's good because we're already at 1 hour and 20. I'm loving keeping them at around 2 hours because I could get it all completely edited in one night, and if I'm feeling really ambitious and willing to like get rid of all my free time after when I get off of work, I could get the video out, a day early. So
I think there's plenty of stuff in this 120 that we could cut out. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think we went on some tangents. We're like, well, that doesn't need to be.
I think God of War. I think we talked a little long. I'll find the boring shit.
I mean, that's why I was like, do you want to talk about God of War last? Because we could probably talk about it for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho, so Avatar: The Way of Water, the movie that should have been out many years ago, but I also thought never would come out, is finally out. Was it worth the wait? Steve, what's the synopsis of Avatar? Or first, before you get into that, did you rewatch the first one? You said you were going to.
I did not.
Yeah. Do you think you would have needed, after seeing it, do you think, oh, I could have used a refresher?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's one of those movies that luckily I watched, I think, probably 2 or 3 times in theaters just because I could see it for free at the time.
Yep.
And other people wanted to see it. So it's like ingrained in my mind that like I know all the story beats enough to where it's like, yeah, I probably could use a refresher, but I don't think I'll need one.
I wouldn't mind watching the director's cut or the extended cut because
I don't think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I only saw that once. There's a bit more in it where like Neytiri had a sister and she was more friendly with Sigourney Weaver's character and helping like creating a school and stuff like that, but then she got killed. So that's one of the things like Neytiri doesn't like the humans because
gotcha.
There's little stuff like that.
Yeah. But watching this movie, I think anybody who didn't even see the first one, you can go into this one. You don't need any back. Like the first hour is essentially here's what happened in the last one, and here's where we're going now. Here's the main issue.
The concept of an avatar and like why Jake would have done this in the first place and what was the whole thing. I think that could be a little vague, like, okay, I guess I get it, and and once you're in, you're along for the ride, and it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
matter. But it's a little weird of an explanation, even in the original movie. It's not that great. Uh, but who's seen a 3 hour and 10 minute movie sequel if you haven't seen the original? And
Sure.
also, who hasn't seen the original?
Because
Because it made, billions of dollars. Well,
well,
my
I mean,
roommate has never seen Avatar, so.
well, I think the other thing is like all the people who were born when that movie came out are now old enough to see the movie
Mm-hmm.
because let's say it's PG-13 and it's
Yeah,
been 13 years. Like
sure.
who hasn't seen it? The people who were born
Yeah,
the day it came out.
yeah.
They haven't seen it. But anyway, uh, synopsis. So this movie takes place several years after the first one. Jake Sully, who was human and now is a full-time blue alien avatar, also known
He
as the
got the
Navy.
promotion.
He got the
He's
yeah.
full time
He's
now.
full time now. He is now has a family with
Mm-hmm.
Neytiri, and he is the leader of the forest people. And they have sent the humans away, except for a select few who are like very close with the
Mm-hmm.
native people. But after several years, the Sky People, also known as humans, come back to claim more materials from this planet and sort of more or less get revenge on the Navi who have troubled them in their quest
Yeah.
to steal their planet's resources.
I
Or
mean,
their moon, I guess. It could technically
the
the
moon.
moon Pandora that they live
Yeah,
on.
wait, is it the moon of Pandora or the moon Pandora?
The moon is Pandora, I believe.
Okay, but we don't know the name of the planet.
I don't think so.
Yeah, because I think it's just a gas giant, so it's not like it's inhabited or anything. But that's one of my problems with this movie. I guess I'm just jumping in real quick.
Sure.
Uh,
I mean, that was
yeah, that was pretty much.
yeah. And Jake Sully and his family go on the run, and they find a water tribe, and that's
Yeah.
where the story goes.
Uh, the motivation at first is not extremely clear. They have kind of like three reasons why they're here. Earth's dying, and
Mm-hmm.
Pandora is the best chance for us.
Mm-hmm.
Whale brain goo and revenge. It's like they bring back the main villain of the last one because, hey, guess what? They had it planned all along. In case all these people die, they were going to get downloaded into avatar bodies, even though it was like super duper expensive to grow these things. But they were like the fail safe just in case. Like they had to bring in Jake Sully because his brother died and he was the only like biological match for this thing, and they didn't want to waste all that money. But they just had like 12 avatars made for the villains just in case they did die and wanted to come back for revenge.
I don't think they were made. I think they. I mean, maybe they were, and I just misinterpreted. But I think it was like, oh, they died. All the humans went away. It's like, okay, we need to come back. Well, I guess he's our best warrior or whatever. It's like
Okay.
we're making these avatars anyway to like come back and combat them. We'll put their memories into this thing. So it was like they made that thing on the way to the planet.
Sure.
That was my interpretation, but I could be wrong.
But they even like show a video of him talking of like, hey, in case I fail, I'm doing this brain thing. So they always had planned
Sure.
for this to happen. I don't know. It just seems weird to bring back the villain and do that. Why do we need him? Since we're bringing back Sigourney Weaver as her own child, why do we need to bring back the villain as well? Let's bring in someone new.
Yeah, I didn't. I kind of liked how they did the Sigourney Weaver thing. I mean, not necessarily I cared about it in the story, but I just mean like her playing a younger sort of version of herself.
Sure.
As like I was cool with that. I did not like that they brought back Stephen Lang. If you want
Yeah.
to bring back Stephen Lang and like, oh, here's a video for the new recruit who's gonna like take on Jake Sully, or
Mhm.
oh, they made or he wants to play like Avatar. Maybe he was the leader of the Water Tribe, and they just kind of like, oh, he's just playing a blue character now.
Yeah.
I could
He
live
could just
with
be
that.
someone
But him
else.
coming back as the villain
The
again,
same villain.
that's my biggest problem with this movie.
Yeah.
I don't care about Stephen Lang.
No,
at
I think
all.
he was a great villain for that one. He's
Oh, yeah.
just that
First
that
one, perfectly fine. I
absolutely
hated that he got
perfect, asshole military man. So yeah, why just do the same thing? I don't care if you bring back mechs And having big fights of people on dragons, I just don't. And if you want to put the new bad guy in Avatar bodies, that's fine as well. But it just didn't need to be this character.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was the best decision because if you brought in another, because the only type of person who you could, I guess, put up against Jake Sully is a military person. And it's if you bring another person in, it's like, well, you're just doing Stephen Lang again. It's just you're giving it a different name. So if we're gonna bring back a similar character, we'll
Might
just
as
make
well.
it, might as well be Stephen Lang. So if that's the reasoning, I get it. It's just I don't like Quaritch as a character.
Yeah,
I
and
don't want to
also
see him again.
this is me realizing what his name was. Quaritch.
Quaritch, yeah.
Quaritch. I don't remember that from the first movie at all.
Yeah, when they find his like mech suit and like he moves the name, I was like, wait, is Quaritch the name of the company that builds it? Like I didn't realize. Like it took me a second. I was like, oh, that must be his name, because they had to call him. I guess they just called him like captain or general or whatever the fuck is. It doesn't matter.
But the fact that you now have brought him back from the dead, and then kill him, and then save him, and now he's still alive by the end to be the villain for part 3. Really? Do we need this character again? And especially, is he going to be around for 4 and 5 as well? Like, I know James Cameron has this planned out.
Yeah.
Do we need him again?
I mean, we can talk about the future. My theory is he is going to be dead, officially dead at the end of the third one, and also Jake Sully is, and then 4 and 5 will be like the son character of this movie and Spider and stuff. Like that's the future of 4 and 5. It's like passing of the torch. I think Jake Sully and this guy's story ends in 3. That's my hypothesis. Because if he's in 4 and 5, that just seems like like why? Who cares? Because I think in 4 and 5 you go the route of like do the Koba Planet of the Apes kind of thing. It's like
bring them to Earth.
No, not necessarily bring them to Earth. I'm just saying like maybe some of your villains are the Na'vi people themselves.
Okay.
You have like Na'vi sympathizers who are teaming up with the humans, and so it's just like Na'vi and humans versus Na'vi and humans, and you could do like there might be, and that might be an avenue you could go down, or maybe Jake Sully like dies so his son can. It's like, oh, we're gonna lead our Na'vi people against Earth. You could do that too, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'm not saying I want to see that. I'm just saying I don't want to see Stephen Lang for 4 or 3 more movies.
Yeah. They might as well have done that for this, because even though Jake Sully's in it enough, Neytiri is not really in this movie.
Yeah, they
did her dirty.
Had nothing to do with Zoe Saldana.
Which is, if you want to make this be, well, this is the next generation, I get it, but they need to kind of commit to that and either kill the parents off or cut down how many kids there are. I don't think we needed 4. The youngest one, she didn't really have much of anything.
She was there to look adorable.
Yeah, so I think cut her. And I think we don't need both sons either, because you have the oldest son who's the golden boy. Then the next oldest is kind of the fuck up, but he's the one that has all the stuff with the whale and bonding with this other outcast. But then he also gets the love interest of the tribe's leader's daughter. That's a bit too much for him. Give the daughter to the oldest son. So that's his thing. And then let the younger son do the whale thing. Because then the older son dies, and it's like, did he really have anything to do in this movie? Was he all that important? So if you gave him the girl, she could cry about, oh, wait, we didn't even get a chance to have this love, and he's already gone. And then the next one, she just goes with the brother anyways. You know, that happens all the time. So yeah, either cut that character or just change a little bit and just give Neytiri something to do, because they also the daughter, the adopted daughter, the Sigourney Weaver, her name's like
Kit or something.
Oh, it's Kitty, like Kidi.
Yeah,
but it just sounds like they're calling him Kitty. Kitty, where are you? And of course, like they got the pointy ears and the little kitty noses and the big eyes, so they're just like, here, Kitty. Weird name. And it's like they want to do stuff with her, and she's like the new chosen one because all the animals seem to react with her differently. She's able to stay under the water longer than her siblings, and that she does kind of save the day with the little glowy fish, but it seems like there's supposed to be something more. You know, her dad was Jesus, and now she's going to be Jesus, but they don't do anything with that. So you have all this big old family with things to do, but not everybody gets to add up to anything. And then uh, the punishment for that is Neytiri does jack shit except for just being extremely angry the whole time. She's just like still in feral mode. It's been years. She hasn't motherhood has not softened her at all, and she's just like, this is our family. This is our home. We gotta kill those fuckers.
Yeah, I think I could see a lot of people having a problem with this movie with her. Either I'm upset that she didn't get more screen time, or I'm upset with the screen time she did get because she was just a nagging woman to Jake. It was just like all she did was complain. It's like, why are we doing this? Why are we here? I don't want to be here anymore. You're always putting the kids in danger. Let's get out here, or let's fight for the people. Yada yada. And Jake's just like, no. It's just like family shit all the time.
Yeah.
Which, well, before I get on to other stuff, I will say, last year it was the last duel. The sword through the head slam, sword through the neck.
Oh yeah.
Best kill of the year.
Yeah.
I think this has the best kill of the year
for
this one. I don't know if you remember this. We're gonna just jump. There's a big final battle. Neytiri's going ape shit. She's bow and arrow, and she's like killing dudes. She puts the best moment, like made me throw my hands in the air and go yes, like audibly in the crowd. Not that it wasn't a huge crowd, but she shoots an arrow through a guy. It's like halfway through, and of a human, and because they're big giant
9-foot javelin arrows.
It goes through the guy, and then there's another person behind him. So she picks up the arrow with the guy still attached, pulls it back, and then the arrow goes through the guy that it's still connected to, and then kills the person behind it. Such a cool action sequence. I was like, I loved it. James Cameron, thank you, sir. And favorite kill of the year. And Last Duel was a December release too, so all my favorite kills are December releases.
All right. I'd say all the arrow hits are pretty satisfying. They really know how to like thunk in and just look awful.
But anyway, I'll just say I really enjoyed this movie. It was kind of exactly what I thought it was going to be. The weakest parts of it were the story and the characters.
Yeah.
Which, like, they were just fine enough to where it's like, I think if this wasn't such a visual spectacular, I would have like not really liked this movie very much. But because the story is the first movie, here's and the first hour is just like set up establishing the world, and then instead of in the first movie it was the Jake and Neytiri romance, but this one it's the family stuff. That's the second hour, and the third hour is just big action sequence. It's the same movie exactly again, except this time there's water. So from a story perspective, not anything all that interesting. From a character perspective, you're like kind of throwing a tear on the bus. You have the kid characters who like I kind of like the middle section a lot. Seeing the Water Tribe and seeing these kids interact with other kids. Like I liked being immersed in this world and culture and seeing the sea creatures. Like all that was super cool. But then like once you get to the end of that second hour, you're just like, when the fuck is the movie gonna happen? And then you have the biggest action sequence of the year, and you're just like, all right, that was pretty cool. It was worth the wait. But yeah, I think this movie is just set up for future movies. Like it's done in a way where it's like it's entertaining as hell. I like all this stuff, but there's a lot of technology or sci-fi crap that's in this where it's just like I think maybe that's supposed to play later. That's why they're introducing it now, even though it doesn't have like a big effect on the
like what?
So like you have the whole sequence where it's just like, oh, this is the whaling industry or an allegory for the whaling industry, and we're throwing away this like essentially a god character, and we're just wasting this whole body for this small vial that makes the brain goo that stops aging completely on Earth.
Yeah, they did like mention it and like wink at the camera.
So I think that'll come back. There's a scene where Spider is being tortured by, not really tortured, but he's put in a machine that like reads his brain waves. It's like if you just imagine where Jake Sully is, it'll come up on our imaging thing. But like they just have that for like a 30-second scene, and then like nothing ever comes of that. It's like I imagine maybe that could play into the future.
Yeah, you would think that would be something where the bad guy gets thrown into the machine by a Na'vi and like, where are you keeping my daughter? And he accidentally thinks of it, and it pops up on a screen. Thanks.
I think there was another thing, which it just seemed like they were just introducing a lot of concepts. Where it's like, well, this isn't paying off now. Like this seems like a Chekhov gun, but Chekhov's gun never shows up, surprisingly.
Yeah,
Um,
in the brain goo being it stops people from aging. That's fine. Like we never really saw what the unobtainium did. They said it was like um, superconductors or something like
sure.
that. And it's like okay, whatever. Uh, but it didn't. I didn't think it needed to pay off because that really wasn't what about this movie
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
if the Water Tribe had also been using this brain goo for something, you know, that would make it even similar to the first one. But the thing I think that is all set up and no payoff is just the who is the father of Sigourney Weaver's kid.
Mhm.
They keep asking it, and then they never answer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it could only be so many people. It's got to be Giovanni Ribisi, right?
I,
Because they mention the like Hugh or Stu or Gru, whatever his name was, the
the
guy,
dorky guy.
the
Yeah.
dorky guy. Um, like, oh, it's probably him. They were together all the time. Okay, well, it's not going to be Quaritch,
Quaritch. Yeah.
Quaritch. It's not going to be him because he already has a kid with someone else who's the mom there, and
Mhm.
how that all that was I didn't love that.
I like
So
Spider. I didn't like that
Spider
he.
was fine.
Yeah.
Uh, so it had to have been like one of the only other. I mean, I guess it could have been anybody, really. It's got to be Giovanni Ribisi, and there's like a shame behind it. But her avatar was pregnant, so she had to have had sex with someone else who was an avatar, right?
That was my thing. I thought from the context of the movie, I was like, oh, I think she fucked on the VIG.
Yeah, like
But at the same time, this is also far in the future sci-fi crap. Like she could have just done an experiment. Like maybe she didn't have sex with anybody, and she just did like a test tube thing with a Navi
uh-huh.
person, or uh, she, is just some, or like once she died, or like the planet because it like connects to the mother planet, or what
Mm-hmm.
all the trees and animals they're all connected. It's like, she had sex with a planet. Not that she actually had sex with a planet, but I just mean like she got some material that was able to impregnate her in a way she wasn't expecting, or whatever. You could do some,
Something,
yeah.
yeah. To me, it seemed like some human snuck into where they were storing her Navi body and like had their way with it, and then
Oh,
it got pregnant because it was already like in a tube or something and it was just doing its normal healthy functions, and she died out of the body. I don't remember exactly how she died, so but I didn't I
I doubt this is the movie that would make that the case.
yeah,
I
no.
don't think I didn't read that situation that way. I don't. I highly
I,
doubt that that's what they did.
well, let's hope. But it just seems like a weird thing to bring up, be a big part of this who this character is and what they're struggling with, and then never answer it.
Because she even has that scene where she connects to the tree and has a
Mm-hmm.
vision of Sigourney Weaver and has the seizure, and like the movie sets it up where she's like connected to like the earth, or Awa, whatever is
Mm-hmm.
what they call it, and they're just like, nope, she's just having she has epilepsy, and
Yeah.
these are just visions she has. It's like, so does she have epilepsy, or is she actually like connected to the world in a way that we're not seeing? Because they don't ever explain that. It's just,
She's gonna have to be because all the animals were interacting with her in special ways, so she's got to be so powerful that she's trying to take in all the information of Pandora at one time, whereas everybody else they can slowly sip at it.
yeah, but
She's
I
getting
don't.
a flood.
But my thing is, I don't remember from the first movie. Like I know they had kind of like a spiritual leader, but I don't think that's what she could do. Was it? Like, does she have powers? Like, is it like partially human ability that gives her a certain
Yeah,
special link? Because like Jake's part human, but he doesn't have that thing. I mean,
but
obviously that might be a different
all the
situation.
little jellyfish, remember they touched him and they said you're the chosen one, and Natiri had to marry him and stuff like that, or had to show him around the ropes.
Okay,
So he was considered special.
sure, sure.
She's
Okay,
considered special. So what they're saying is, unless one of your parents is an artificially made avatar thing to mate with a real avatar or a real Navi, then you're not special. There's something about that.
mm.
Your race of people, you're fine. But once you mix with my race, then
uh,
then the children are better.
Jim. You're I don't. Oof. Anyway, yeah, but also with the like all the it also felt like every sort of creature we're introduced is just also a Chekhov's gun thing. It's just
Hmm.
like, oh, this fish lets you breathe underwater for an extended period of time. I was like,
Mm,
all right, well, that's going to come into play later. It just
yeah,
seems like
little butterfly
this whole movie
backpacks.
is just sci-fi stuff to get you out of any situation.
Yeah.
Like that's like every 10 minutes they were introducing a new thing. I was like, well, I bet that's going to come back later. I bet
Hmm.
that's going to come back later, and it all does for the
Yeah.
most part.
So
Which just like seems like lazy writing to me. Um, and speaking of lazy writing, the only I had two characters who I hated,
okay.
and just from like all the jokes that they said didn't land, and maybe it was on purpose because they were supposed to be douchey. And I hate to say this, but Jermaine Clement and the Australian
Yeah.
counterpart, all like their
Yeah.
scenes were awful.
Hmm.
I didn't like. I'm fine with the idea of like the spearfishing god
Yeah.
whales. I thought that all that stuff was great, looked good, but
Horrifying.
those two characters were so annoying. And
Yeah.
you and I, we love Jermaine Clement, but
Absolutely.
he is not good in this. His
No.
and like there's the big action sequence at the end. I thought, and like his Australian douchebag partner was like about to die and constantly failing. He's like, haha, you suck. Like I thought he was just like Jermaine Clement was going to be like the other scientists who like joined the group. Is like, no,
Yeah.
I see the wrong. But it's like, no, he dies because
Yeah.
he's just hanging out with these
Yeah.
douchebags.
Yeah. He's
It's like,
allowing this. It's like it funds his research so he can keep
yeah,
researching it, but he's letting him get murdered as well.
yeah. The movie just kept seeing. It just seemed to me like the movie was setting up where like he was going to abandon them. It's like
Yeah.
I see the wrongness. Like I see the errors of my ways.
Hmm.
They're just like,
No.
nope. I hung around and I got killed for it. I assume he's dead because you don't see.
Yeah.
I
You
don't think
don't.
you see him get decapitated or anything.
No,
You
like
just see
his
his boat
buddy
flip
gets his
over.
arm cut off, and
Yeah,
but yeah, it just seems like he dies on a boat,
but
probably.
yeah, all of his jokes just did not land, and for me,
Yeah,
and I was just, this is awful.
yeah.
But anyway,
But I do like that story beat. That's probably my favorite part of the story is the overfishing, whaling. First movie was very much like save the planet. This is save the oceans.
mhm,
James Cameron's very big on oceans and ocean life.
conservation.
Yeah,
I will say though, when the first time you see Lilok or whatever his name is, the middle child,
yeah,
speak to that whale, I rolled my eyes because I was like, What are we doing here? We're having an actual conversation with this
yeah.
whale." But then as it went on, it's like, oh no, these creatures are super smart. We have a connection with them.
Sure.
They are sort of like our spiritual sea gods or
Yeah,
whatever. I was
there
like,
are
okay, like
dolphins. Yeah.
when it first happened, I was like, this is dumb. But as the story progressed, I was like, okay, this makes sense. I'm into it.
Especially for a world where you have an ability to talk to the animal by putting your ponytail with their ponytail and you're connected.
Or at least not necessarily talk to them, but like,
But they understand
but
your
they
intent.
understand what's
So
going on.
why wouldn't he just like also have one of these things that I mean he does.
He does.
It's inside his mouth, but why even have that? It just seems weird to introduce like sign language to a whale when you have means to talk to other animals. It's bizarre.
Yeah, and I mean, they don't go into it. Maybe it's like they don't allow them in their mouths, kind of like as a, we're not a whale taxi. Or I mean, I guess you see them. But I don't know what it is. It's like, you don't get on
You
the
don't
Eagle.
let anybody into your mouth,
You
Steve.
don't hop on the Eagles and they don't take you all the way to Mordor.
Yeah.
It's another thing.
I mean,
It's
they
like,
should.
yeah. So you could do some mumbo jumbo, but it's like, oh yeah, like if you just opened your mouth. But I guess that's also like a big ask. It's like, hey man, I'm big enough to eat you.
Mhm.
Just crawl my
Just-
mouth, bro.
yeah.
You'll be fine.
Oh
It's
yeah,
awesome.
it just so happens that my talking tentacle's in my mouth. Yeah, right in the back of my throat. Trust me.
Anyway,
Can I talk about fingers?
okay, talk about fingers.
I don't understand the rules when it comes to fingers. So their first kid has 4 fingers.
Mhm.
That's Jake and Natiri's kid. So you have an avatar and a V. 4 fingers, like a V. Second kid, 5 fingers, like Jake has. Third kid is adopted, but also born from an avatar, has 5 fingers. Youngest daughter has 4 fingers. How does this work? Why does one son have 4 fingers and one son have 5?
Well, I will attribute that to just offshoots of genetics because I have a friend who was born with 6 fingers on each hand, and most of his kids that he had also had that. It's just
Okay.
like it's just another birth thing, and they've been removed, and his kids had them removed and everything to be normal.
Normal.
Yeah, so it's just something that wouldn't happen to two Navi parents, but someone who has other genetics having that would make them off. But also because he's also technically 100 or more or less 100% Navi, maybe they can have what appears to be normal children as well. So I think it's just one of those things where like only quote unquote a freak would have this,
Okay.
but also it doesn't have any like real effect. It's just another genetic
Like
offshoot.
whether you have freckles or not.
Yeah, freckle. Yeah, yeah.
But it's just weird that they wouldn't give, especially since they have an adopted daughter who has 5, that it would just be that's a thing that happens when you mate with an avatar, you're gonna have 5-fingered kids. But I mean, I guess it works in the way of the oldest son is the golden child,
Yeah.
isn't picked on because he has the normal fingers. The next one, well, he didn't get to be just as good as his brother because everybody already saw him as a freak with 5 fingers right from the get-go. But it just I want to know James Cameron's reasoning why he didn't just give them all 5.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is just like, how do I, one, differentiate these people who kind of look similar, especially the two brothers. I always had a little bit of trouble like separating
they're
them.
very similar.
They don't look different enough.
They need crazy or different hair.
Because he had like the youngest who was very small. You could tell her apart.
Yeah.
The other one was Sigourney Weaver.
Looks like Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, you could tell her apart. And then you just had the two brothers who, to me, looked essentially the same. It's like, well, we'll make them different because they both have different fingers and whatever. Like, it's just middle child syndrome. How can I make this middle child even more of an outcast? Got weird fingers.
Okay.
That's my filmmaking explanation. I don't know if that's the actual, reasoning.
I just found that very odd. So the first Avatar had an issue with like people finding the Na'vi to be a little sexy. Natiri's a good-looking lady.
We're going down this road. Okay.
We just got to talk about it real quick. And it makes sense. And like I said, like she's got the big eyes. You look at every Disney animated character, everybody's got big eyes. It's an attractive feature. Pointy little ears, little cat face. I'm sure furries went nuts for this. But I love that he kind of like doubled down on it. Like, oh, you thought Nateri is hot. Wait till you see these catfish people. You thought the regular cat people were hot. What happens when we throw a little fish in it? Because I gotta say, the wife of the tribe leader and their daughter, those are some sexy alien catfishes.
Jesus Christ. Did you know that was Kate Winslet?
No, I was looking up. Like I heard that she was in it.
Yeah,
and I was like, I don't know who. And then it's like, oh, that was the mom, the tribe mom,
the water tribe leader. I knew who that was. Like weirdly, it's like I can pick Cliff Curtis out. He's got a very distinct voice.
Yeah,
it's just like he's one of those actors that has a very distinct like face, and he's only in so much. It's like I recognized him like immediately.
Yeah,
I was like, who is his wife? It's like couldn't pick it out, and I was like, oh, Kate Winslet. Of course it'd be.
I would have assumed it was a person of color.
Yeah.
Like it, because like you can tell when you look at Jake Sully, that's a white guy.
Yeah.
So when I looked at the Kate Winslet character, I just never would have assumed it was her. But so what do you think of the water Na'vi?
I liked him. I think it's interesting that like it makes sense. It's like so if the Na'vi of the forest people, they're kind of like your Native American tribes. Is like because the first movie was essentially like, oh, it's Dancing with Wolves,
from Ferngully,
all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then this one is just like, well, what do we make the water tribe people? That's essentially to make them the Maori South Pacific Islander people. It's just like it just seems like. You could have done something different with that, but I get why you leaned that direction. It's just like the easiest thing to.
You look at Islanders.
Yeah, it's just the easiest transition. And I like that their skin was like a little greener, a little lighter tone, just because like being in water and all that.
They got diluted.
Not necessarily diluted, but like in like humans, like we're out in the sun a lot, we get darker.
Sure.
But you leave out other stuff in the sun, it gets lighter just from like
It's being bleached.
it's
Yeah.
being bleached by the
Yeah.
sun. Yeah, yeah. So I kind of like that they had a different shade.
Their forearms are much
Oh yeah,
bigger.
that was my favorite part. Is like their tails were thicker and their forearms were wider, so they made them faster swimmers. Like, oh, that's cool. Like I like that their bodies can sort of change
Yeah.
with the environment they're in.
Yeah.
I don't know how much like genetic sense that makes, or like sort of what evolutionary traits, but like it's future stuff. It's sci-fi. Who
Yeah.
cares? But it was definitely, I like that they were easy to differentiate.
Yeah.
Because like if they were the same color as the
my
family,
God, yeah.
you probably would have lost them easily.
And they do have like the Navi are very like stripe,
Mhm.
and they have more tattooed
Yeah,
looking. Which is that? Do you think is that natural, or do they put that on?
No, I think the tattoos weren't natural.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like them, and I hope there's more than just these two types of Navi.
Mhm.
Not to go with the elementals and stuff like
Sure.
that. You have to, so fire. The fear of fire. Avatar Fear of Fire is next. So where do they live? They live in the desert. They live in the shadow of a volcano.
I don't know if I think there'd be sand Navi.
And would they be like yellow or brown?
My guess would that they'd be like darker than like. Would you do like a darker blue than?
Yeah, it's like, do you
Jake? Because like they're
do
all
you go
already kind of
purple? Because to be on that side, or because are there red Navi and they're cave dwelling ones?
Or are they like the same color as like Jake and his family, but like because they're out in the desert, they're the group that wears like clothes, and so that's how you differentiate them. It's like the sun beating down on it. It's so hot in this part of Pandora that we like dress heavily to like not burn or whatever.
Or they cover themselves in mud. Who knows what it is,
Or they have like the Dune we drink our own sweat thing, who cares?
Yeah, they suck on the end of their tail. That looks moist.
Yeah, I mean, you could do ice area, you could do sand area. I guess there could be a volcano. It's like, who lives at a volcano?
Who lives in a volcano?
It doesn't make any sense. But the idea of like soot covered Navi could be kind of cool. Or like if they just like pick up
the ash and
like do like tribal make. Oh, like
because
that'd be badass.
Because they'd be red and that they stand out too much. So then they cover themselves in the black, and so the first time you see one, they're fighting and stuff, and they get hit or whatever, and there's like a smear, and you think it's blood or whatever, but then they get a bucket of water in the face and reveal Red Navi.
So we'll see. I mean, I assume we'll see in future movies. We're gonna get at least one more because it's already filmed.
Yeah.
What else about this movie? When the whale showed up and killed the shark thing, I was like, come on, are we doing like there's always a bigger fish
always
thing?
A bigger fish.
I thought it was so dumb that the whale just happened to save him, and I was like, but
it didn't happen,
Then it was explained as like, oh, these things like have a relationship with the Navi. I was like, all right, Cameron, you got me again. I thought you were just like,
but
here's
in that moment.
But in that moment, I was like, here's a thing that comes out of nowhere and just saves a hero for no reason.
Yeah.
But I like that there was a reason. I never expected the whale to have a backstory where he he went to war with the whales went to war with the sky people and lost, and he was the only survivor, not the only survivor.
So did the other whales that did survive, like that didn't go to war, did they cut off his flipper, or was that part of the whaling accident?
Well, because they were releasing missiles, because I guess they were all trying to. I think one of his flippers just got blown off.
Okay, because it looked like it got cut off, because they made it sound like that was his punishment. He was banished, so they cut that flipper off.
Maybe I didn't think that was it.
But then he had a cool piercing in the other one.
So what else? So yeah, I mean, like I said, the first part was just set up. That was all fine. Second part was all the family stuff. That was. I guess let's just talk about the final.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about Spider and Quaritch and all that stuff?
Their father and son. I guess Quaritch had a wife or at least a lady friend on the planet.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's prostitutes or something.
Because it is a corporate thing. It wasn't a government thing. They weren't like real military people. They were ex-military people. They were hired guns. So yeah, why not?
Could have slept with one of the girls on the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't really matter.
It could have been any one of those things. But we don't see her.
In the first movie, you don't have any inkling that he is interested in anyone.
And so where's mom though? So she had to give birth, and that had to have happened after he died. So she didn't die in the battle. So did she go home? Did she like abandon her child there? Because they said you can't put babies in the cryotubes. Okay, that makes sense. Then you hang out on planet with your kid until it is old enough to go in a cryotube, and then take the next shuttle home. Did she just fuck off to Earth and leave her kid behind? Like, oh, her dad. This kid's dad's dead. I'm not dealing with this shit.
Either that or he, like I said, he hooked up with one of the females on his team and they had a kid. It came out, and then it was just like, well, they're both dead, so there's no one to raise the kid.
Yeah, but we don't know that.
No, yeah, I know now, but I don't.
Yeah, I guess we don't really know when he was born.
I guess it leaves it up to the future movies. Like, if we want to go the mom route, we can bring her back,
yeah,
or
we
we don't
do.
have to explain it all. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, maybe she comes back on the next wave of humans, and
Mm-hmm.
like Miles has to decide: do I go with the humans and be with my
Mm-hmm.
living mom and like discover like what it means to truly be human or something, or do I stay with the Navi people?
Yeah.
You can go that route, I guess. But
I didn't really love Spider. He's probably one of my least favorite parts of the movie, just because like you don't know which way he's going. It seems like he's gonna be friends with his dad and help, but then he's not. Like, so he's just kind of doing the Jake Sully thing of like, am I gonna betray the people?
I mean, I like Spider as a character. I didn't like what they did with Spider in the story. So I saw someone say Spider is a combination of Newt and Bam Bam.
Yeah, Bam Bam, yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, he looks straight out of like 3,000 years BC. Like that
Or
white
10,000 BC.
10,000 BC,
Yeah.
whatever. White people with
cornrows.
the dreadlocks.
Dreadlock, sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah. It's just ugly. It's awful. I don't care who you are. It doesn't look good on you. And so he looks like he's a character from year one. You know, he looks like he's in a comedy bit about cavemen.
Sure.
So I think he could have had a better haircut. That would have gone a long way.
But, I mean, if you gave the Navi people dreadlocks and he wanted to be one of them, like,
Sure,
I get it. And it makes sense for the character.
But I also don't like Jake's hair. Like, you look in the first one, his hair is like, it comes back. It's receding a little bit in certain spots, and it's just like tight and neat. And this, it's a little wild, but I think his hairline changed.
Okay.
It's like they went, no, that looks stupid. We want to give him longer hair. No, we got to adjust it. No, too big of a forehead.
I don't remember a hairline like that, but
it looks fine. Oh, Sam's been all over. It looks fine. I'm not super thrilled. And then Natiri just seems like they went like copy paste. She did not grow. Oh wait, she's pregnant. Okay, we could adjust that.
But yeah, back to Spider.
Yeah, Spider.
I liked I thought his performance was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was some scenes where like he was really trying to act that maybe didn't land. Like the scene where the brother died, I didn't really believe anyone was like that upset. other than Natiri.
Yeah.
Natiri, Zoe Saldana, she was acting.
Yeah.
Everyone else was just like, it just seemed like they were like making the crying face without actually being able to cry. And like I know Spider like had a tear come down like through the mask, but it just seemed like I don't think any of like the real emotional stuff worked. But I liked him as like the feral kid who just wanted to be part of like he was like the adopted human child of the family, and they liked him, and like they maybe gave him some hard time about like being a human, but they weren't like they were always like no you're part of the group.
Yeah, he was their cousin. They called him.
Yeah, and but yeah, like his like he kind of joins Quaritch's group and is like, oh, this is what Jake Sully did. This is how he tamed a dragon. And he's just like helping them throughout this whole thing. It's like. But he's like, I know you won't betray Jake, but help me do everything I can
so I can betray
Jake in the future. It's just
hey, I like your workaround, Dad.
Yeah, and it's like I know you're not supposed to know which side he's gonna go with, but then once Quaritch and his team are like firebombing on these villages, and he's just like, no, this isn't what I signed up for. It's like, well, what the fuck do you think was gonna happen, bro? And it's like so once that happens, you should have immediately been like, I'm out no matter what. But he's still kind of like hung out and helped him, and like all this stuff is like if I believed he was trying to like gather information so he can tell Jake immediately, but it's just like it didn't seem like like what were you doing with him? It just seemed like you just need to put him somewhere to get Quaritch here versus like any real logical reason for them to interact after like once he was like flamethrowing the villages. It's like Spider should have just been like, know what? Fucking I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And that should have just been it. But he just hung out until he could finally team up with the Navi again. And like they weren't even mad at him. They were just like, hey, welcome back, son. It's like, aren't you pissed that he like
but they knew like he was taken and they didn't actually see him do anything bad. So,
Yeah, I guess.
but yeah, I would also have been a little wary.
But well, yes, they didn't see him do anything, but that was Jake's whole thing in the beginning. Is like he's human, he's with humans now. What if Spider does like Jake had the military idea or military wherewithal to go like they could turn him on us
Yeah.
and then we'd be fucked. But they like once he shows up, they're just like, "Oh, hey, kid," pat him on the head, and it's like they never worry about it. It's like, "Hey, we're here now, man. What it is what it is."
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about the big fight.
Big fight.
So I love this fight because it's a big fight, but it's small at the same time. It is a big ship that they're on, but it's not a aircraft carrier. It's big for what they need to do, but it's not that weird big old ship at the end of Black Panther. You know,
Sure.
that weird column sticking out of the ocean. This was such a better ending than Black Panther's. That looks quaint compared to this.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just like right off the coast on some water. It's the first movie you had people on the ground and jumping into airplanes and things swinging about, and it was a little bit bigger in scope. And I'm glad that they didn't feel the need to go like it's a laser shooting from space and it's burning a hole straight to the core of Pandora. They didn't go so big. It was just like, no, we're just people on another military vehicle just trying to wipe out indigenous people. And I don't know, I loved it. This last hour is such a blast.
Yeah, I think if the final hour of the battle was underwhelming, this movie could have like really been like, why did we bother?
Yeah,
because you are taking 2 hours of like just minor action sequence. Like the train sequence at the beginning was also pretty awesome,
but very short.
but very short. I mean, I always like a good train heist slash big action sequence, but yes, very quick. And then there's not like really a ton of action for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
But comparing it to the Black Panther fight, which is like that's the other thing with Marvel. It's like we have to have like these big battles, but no one shoots anybody. It's like we always have to be like in close quarters, and we're all doing like hand to hand combat or sword fighting or whatever. Even though like, why aren't we just shooting each other? They can be over there, we can be over there. Well, we have all this technology, but it's like no, well we'll knock the one ship we brought into the water. And it's like okay, I guess we'll hand to hand fight. Anyway, so yeah, when the whale was upset, I was just like, oh man, they're doing the first movie again. Like I was waiting for him to go like, hey, whale bros, we're going to war. And they're just like, know what? Let's go, man. And there's going to be like 50 whales jumping and like killing everybody. That's what I was worried about. Or like he was going to be like, hey, shark that I fought earlier, like get your buddies. We're going to go eat some humans. The fact that it was just him, I like that. It's like it wasn't.
He's a renegade.
Yeah, it wasn't animals helping the Na'vi. It was just this one. And then, so that was nice. Though, like, riding the flying fish creatures, awesome. It's like
so cool looking.
We had the dragon things before, so like you're kind of doing the same thing again, but it's from the water. I don't know. It just worked for me. They looked cool, like part surfboard that turns into a war machine.
Yeah, like they have to keep their tail in to keep momentum, but they still have wings, and then they can get up. But they had like faces of turtles, but bodies of eels. They were so weird looking, but that I love that creature design.
Were you talking about the like jet ski ones?
Yeah.
The flying ones had more like a swordfish.
Oh yeah.
Or like long gator kind of snout kind of thing. Yeah.
More crocodile.
Crocodile, yeah.
Or caiman.
But yeah, those things were cool, and it just reminded me of like, there's something about a non-human riding another creature with machine guns. It just reminded me of Planet of the Apes, where it's just like, oh, it's a chimpanzee on the back of a horse shooting a machine gun. This is the coolest thing I've ever. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
When you see a squirrel riding a dog, and it's like, man, if that squirrel just had a gun in its hand.
Yeah. So and very few people do action as well as James Cameron.
Yeah.
And man, what an action set piece.
In Titanic, you spend a good 2 hours just learning the ship, learning the people, character development, story, and you get so invested in these characters. Then when the iceberg hits, you go, oh shit, that's right. There's a huge disaster at the end of this movie. And then it gets you like reinvested in it because it's just go, 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 go. And I think he's trying to replicate that with this, except you just don't care about those characters nearly as much. I don't, maybe just because Leonardo DiCaprio is so charismatic, you like him. I mean, he's definitely better than a Sam Worthington for
Sure.
sure. Uh, but yet you just don't really love these characters like everyone fell for Rose and Jack.
Mm.
But it's that same thing, character, huge disaster, awful murdering of a whale in such a terrible way, and then like huge battle sequence. Not as successful, but still amazing filmmaking. Like, say what you will about any of the Avatar movies or the characters or the story or whatever, these movies are amazing looking. They're a feat to behold. Every shot has some special effect, and that's not a big deal. We do special effects in movies all the time, but this is just an animated movie.
Almost.
Almost 100% animated movie. But I feel like there was more sets on this one than I remember on the last one. It feels like there was one set on the last one, which was like the bridge of the ship and any sort of corporate thing we're going to do on that one set. And this, I felt like we had more sets, but I could be wrong. It's been a while.
Yeah. Um, that's the one thing I'll say in terms of like human shots versus the Navi shots. Like there was times where we're spending so much time with the Navi when we jump back to the humans. It's like, oh, the humans look out of place
Yeah.
because like now it's like the Navi looks so realistic in context to everything else because it's
Mm-hmm.
all digital that when you go back to the humans and you're like, oh, now I'm looking at a set, like it's very jarring where it's like, oh, why is it that the humans look almost more fake than
Yeah.
the Navi?
Yeah.
And I think it's just because like our brains are just adjusting to this
Yeah.
creature and this world that when we
Mm-hmm.
go back to things that we can recognize, we're like, oh right, I'm watching a movie now. Which I don't know if is a testament to his quality of his filmmaking and special
Yeah.
effects or a bad choice, or maybe it's just because I watched it in 2D and maybe in 3D it looked better.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't really
right.
know.
You watch 2D and I watch
Yeah.
3D.
Uh,
Did you watching it where you're like, oh yeah, that's a 3D moment, or oh, I bet that would have looked cool?
no,
Didn't.
well, I mean, there was like knowing that 3D was an option. I do regret not seeing it. It was just a matter of like, this is the best time I can
Yeah.
watch it, and I have the free time, so I'm just going to see it now. Um, I think the big battle sequence, like I would have been fine missing. There's some of the stuff in the water that would have been like, oh, that would have been
Mm-hmm.
nice to see, or like when the kids like first entered like that holy
Oh
temple
yeah,
area that's in all the
sure.
trailers. Like I was like, damn, that's an impressive shot.
And
I bet that looks good in
we were only
3D.
there for like 2 seconds in the movie.
Yeah,
It's like, and this is our sacred area. And then
we gotta go.
next, yep, we gotta go. Touch the grass and let's go.
Uh, but yeah, I think the final battle in 3D would have been pretty fucking cool. But I still enjoyed the movie. 3D didn't ruin it for
Yeah,
me.
it's definitely not gonna ruin it. And like all 3D, it's too dark. You know, they really need to. If you're gonna have 3D, change those bulbs in your projectors, and also maybe it needs to be turned up a little bit just to compensate for it because they cranked the sound in my theater. It was loud as hell,
Mm.
and I'm sure that's from the studio. Like, crank this baby. People are gonna want that surround sound, but the 3D is pretty damn good. The scene where Natiri is pregnant and she's shooting the bow, and then she
Mhm.
has to adjust for her belly when she raises it up. That was like right in your fucking face.
Oh.
It was nice. I'd say the parts that suffered with 3D, you would be in the ship as it's sinking or swimming through all the kelp, and there'd be stuff in the foreground, and that is 3D with the stuff in the background. And it's almost like you have a fuzz in your eye. You know how
Mm.
sometimes you go
Yeah, yeah.
blind, and it kind of does one of those, like a girder will go by, but because it's right there, it really fucks with the 3D for a
Okay.
second, and it makes it obvious like you're watching this in a 3D setting. But for most of the time, I was just
Blown away.
just gawking at it, like, my God, this is so beautiful. But I wouldn't have been upset just because of the darkness. I'd rather have brighter picture than more depth.
Yeah. There's almost like Star Wars material about like every character who you've ever seen in the background who doesn't even have a line of dialogue has
Yeah.
like a backstory and
Uh-huh.
information or whatever. But I just think like give me the Pandora book that breaks down the cultures, these creatures, their names. Like I want to know more about this world because I think it's so interesting and worthy of like sort of going into the lore of this planet and finding out more versus like Star Wars, which just has like so many different like races and cultures and
Hmm.
characters and all of this. Like, there's no way you can like follow all this. But it's like, give me a book on Pandora.
Yeah.
I'd study that book.
Yeah, I feel that's one of the uh let's crack these open. I feel that's one of the problems with Avatar is it has lore when it wants to,
Hmm.
but it doesn't have anything deeper like Star Wars does. But of course, that has
Sure.
many people working on that, creating other things, where this is a lot simpler. It's not a galaxy full of crazy things. It's one moon with one type of people. You could only have so much, but knowing what past generations were like and some of their legends and their fables and the different people on this planet on the moon and what the planet is like, it just feels like it's so shallow that they probably could have some deeper lore if it went into a more fantasy realm. If they could have bigger, because they kind of like touch on this earthly magic of being able to connect with plants and animals and it being the data bank of all of our dead, and it's pretty spiritual, but it doesn't have bigger concepts of like us actually like visiting the afterlife or actual ghosts, something that a fantasy may take advantage of,
Hmm.
where this is kind of more grounded in science fiction. So I feel it's kind of held back by making lore that's too crazy, because you can't say, well, on this moon they were crazy, a sky god and a sea god, and then they fell in love, and they have some like crazy mythological thing, like maybe
Hmm.
that's a story they would tell, but it's not anything based in fact. I'm sure this is just more of a place where they just evolved like us. They were weird creatures, monkey creatures swinging in the trees, and they evolved into the Navi. And it's pretty basic. There's not a
Yeah.
whole lot there, but it just feels like there's potential for it. But we're probably not going to see much of it.
Yeah, I mean, the most fantastical sort of thing is, them going to the ancestral realm when they like
Sure.
after they bury their son essentially in the ocean, they can like
Mm-hmm.
touch a thing and like go back to their memories and like sort of interact with
But
him.
that's a biological thing, because
Yeah.
you can connect to plants and you could connect to animals and you could connect to what is basically your god tree
Yeah.
that has all the memories. So that's not anything too fantastical, because that is just a biological
Sure.
thing for them. And I don't know. It seems like there could be more, but it's limited.
Yeah. Uh so what do you want to see? I mean, what do you have anything else to say about the final battle?
The all the water rushing in and the things sinking and was very much like Titanic. Like the panic of the water rushing in was done really well, and Natiri freaking out of not being able to get out with her daughter. Everything is just high stakes, and I like what everybody was into. There's only like one bit of comedy where like the little daughter is just like, I can't believe I'm handcuffed again, and my
mhm.
my theater went nuts for that line. And it's a funny little thing, and it's nice to have those little punches when it's dire times. But yeah, not an extremely funny movie. But
It wasn't funny, but there was charming moments
yeah,
that like
yeah.
made you laugh. Yeah.
But I wish there was a bit more with Natiri and Jacob, like being in love and happy family people. But it almost seems like it's been 14 years and she's over the marriage, and being a mother has kind of like pissed her off. And she's like, I was a fucking warrior, I was a badass, and now I'm a mom. Fuck this. I'm just angry at everything.
Hmm.
She's a real Karen in this movie. No, I'm just kidding. um, but I just it's not the movie I would have wanted to see. They could have done completely away with the military stuff. No Avatar clones of past villains, none of that. So I got a quick little pitch.
All right. Well, real quick, back to the Marines just for 1 second. Quaritch's like right hand dude. I like how it's 200 years in the future or whatever amount of
Mm-hmm.
time it is, and Oakley's are still like the number
Yeah,
one sunglasses
yeah,
of
for
like
douchey Marine
douchey
guys.
Marine
Yeah,
guys. Like Jesus Christ, we
yeah.
haven't gotten any cooler sunglasses
Now,
since then.
because if you go too crazy, like there's plenty of sunglasses now that you look at and go, no one's wearing those. Those are just like novelty. So if you go a little too nuts, it's like, oh, look at the crazy future sci-fi fashion, whereas everything else is relatively grounded. So it's like, hey, it works.
Yeah,
Glasses,
it
they
does.
work.
I know it's like it's kind of like the official sunglasses of like douche.
Yeah.
So if you want to establish that these
Mm-hmm.
characters are douches, you throw apparel
Yeah.
on there.
Throw a
And
backwards
I,
hat on,
yeah,
make them say
I get it,
oorah and semper
but
fi.
I mean that's Marine stuff.
Yeah,
They're gonna say it anyway.
but generally, unless it's a movie about Marines doing Marine stuff, if they are the douches, like saying that just solidifies how douchey they are because that's their identity. Is I'm
Okay,
so fucking
fair
cool.
enough. I'm sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
So I feel like you do away with the thing. If you want to bring back corporate, getting revenge or whatever, save it for a third one. Don't do it automatically. You're just doing the same exact movie right after.
Well, I think since this series is Cameron going like big corporations are bad, they're destroying the planet.
Sure.
They're going to be the villain from 1 to 5 if
Yeah.
they get 5. Like I don't think you're going to have any of these movies without big corporation because someone's got to pay for all this shit.
I get it, but it would have been nice. So here's my thing. A bunch of people want to stay behind because they realize, they had a good thing here. They had a good relationship. And so there is the small camp. More people show up and they come saying, Earth is kind of fucked. We see the writing on the wall. We need to get out of there. We have no place to go. We understand others like us have come to dominate you. We will be your subjects if necessary. And the Na'vi, being good people, square off a little bit of land. This is where you can be. You can do whatever you want in there, but stay away from everything else. But of course, you're going to have assholes within the group saying like, why did we only get this small chunk of land? We should get a couple miles more. And well, why can't we go further south? And so you have those who want to get back to doing the exploiting thing. And then I think you should have Na'vi, who, and probably one of the children of Jake, see the human side of things and go like, wow, look how crazy and alien that is. And I envy them. And I don't want to be a weird tree savage. I want to be one of the sophisticated sky people. And you have them join, kind of like the apes joining the humans,
But there's a lot of Planet of the Apes talk in this episode, but it makes sense. The donkeys, the gorillas.
Yes. So then you have people who they see the Na'vi and go like, wow, you guys live in harmony with nature. We fucked that up on Earth. I want to do that. So there's more people who are like Spider who go off and try to prove themselves, and whether they do or don't, whatever. So then you have the asshole sky people somehow fuck something up. They cross a border they weren't supposed to. They piss off the water tribe. And then it's a movie about the warring tribes of people and why they have been separated, why they don't interact with each other at all. Because it seems like they almost never have seen each other. They know of each other, but you would think there's no trade. Obviously, there doesn't have to be a lot of commerce or anything, but like, oh, we're not good in the water. You give us the fishes and we bring you the fruits from our trees. There's nothing between the different tribes. So what if something in the past had happened? And so then we can go into some of the past of the Na'vi, and then we just have battle on the planet and them looking down on Jake. Oh, you have this fucking outsider as your leader, and maybe the water people just aren't as accepting, and it's bringing the tribes together. And then you could have your corporate bullshit in the next one. Once now the tribes are united and we're all a peaceful thing. I think that's just, a simpler story that doesn't involve the corporate and the military-esque people. I think they're the weakest part of this.
Sure. So I know we just talked about Planet of the Apes, and I kind of pitched like I want to see like a Koba type character of like, oh, what if Jake has to go against another Na'vi? Like that's the main villain, and I think you could do that whether it be Quaritch or Quaritch setting it up for 4. It's like, so if the third one is, it's like Quaritch kind of goes, hey, I've tried. Me and my military guys, we've gone after him twice. We've failed twice. We can't beat them because they will unite against a single enemy, which is us, the humans. And now because Quaritch is in avatar form, maybe that's how he survives, is like, I'm going to join another tribe. Is like, I'll say I'm from the forest people and I was outcast, and Jake Sully who's the leader, outcast me because I wanted to like make the humans go away, but he wanted to keep some of the humans.
Okay.
And so he becomes this.
He's the worm tongue.
He's the worm tongue, or like a Negan type character who like he joins some other tribe. Maybe it's the volcano tribe or the sand tribe or whatever.
Yeah. And he rallies up all the outsiders.
Yeah, and he builds his Avatar team or whatever, and then he basically brings a civil war amongst the Na'vi, and so they're busy fighting each other. And even if he dies, maybe he dies at the hand of like someone in that tribe who was their leader, and he's just or like whatever. So you get rid of Quaritch, but Quaritch's thing was, I'm gonna get Jake Sully, even if it leads to my death. So he dies, but now Jake Sully has to deal with this shit. And maybe Jake Sully dies at the end of the third one, and now it's like Navi warring with each other, and so now they're becoming more human-like because like we didn't do this before they got here. And then that's when you have the introduction of like, oh, now there's humans who it's like some Navi it's like, well, I don't want to be part of this war, so I'm going to join the humans, and I think they're interesting. And so now you have that nerdy dorky guy who was with Sigourney Weaver. It's like how he became an avatar. Some of the Navi are like, I'm going to become a human, like you said. And so like they're wearing t-shirts and pants, and
but not going into
human bodies.
But that would be kind of fun. Like, oh, look how small I am.
Yeah, they're just like adopting human culture, sort of thing.
I'm really growing to love this coffee they drink every morning. Smoking cigarettes and
so you have some Na'vi who are going to the humans, some humans who still want to work with the V. The Na'vi are warring with other tribes because like some of them want to kill all humans or banish them. Some of them are just like, no, like there are some good ones they want to stay. And so it's like, it's just where do we go from here? And like maybe in the future is like, oh, the more humans are coming, but it's the last of humans. Earth is done. Like these last few ships that showed up, it's like we had to come here because we have nowhere else to go. So you can either let us live here, or we just have to fight. And no matter what we do, we're just gonna have to fight because one of us has to keep this place. Is it gonna be you? Is it gonna be us? Or can we? And that's gonna be the idea of like 4 and 5. Can we cohabitate? You're still gonna have these big battle sequences, but it's like, can we live peacefully, or do we wipe one of them out? And I think that's where you go, and you just have Na'vi on both sides, some in the middle, some over here with the humans, some over with just the Na'vi, and I think that's where the series goes and how it, I guess, affects the planet. And then you maybe have the humans going like, well, because we're the last of the humans, they have the doomsday button. It's like, we're going to launch nukes and hopefully kill enough Na'vi to where it's like, this is our planet now. It's like, because it's our last option. It's an allegory. And like, are they going to destroy the planet like they did their last one?
Sure.
I think that's where the series goes.
Yeah. I mean, you probably don't want to pick a planet where you can't breathe the air. And I thought the water would do something to the humans, you know? They can't breathe the air, and the water is also acidic, you know? Something. It'd probably be hard to have that final fight scene if they're all on oceans of acid or something.
Yeah.
But, yes, I see that. That's all good stuff.
That's my pitch for the future.
Yeah, that works.
The fifth one will be, will we launch the nukes? And then whether Jake Sully's alive or it's his kids, like they have to stop the nukes, and
okay, if they want to really assert their dominance, they need to stop jumping off their ship with their big trucks and their weird mech suits and Gatling guns. Just land a bunch of ships. You see that fire that burned away like that forest in those huge trees? It was like a nuke shockwave. They took out a huge section, landing one ship. Start bringing those ships down all over the planet and burn these fuckers out. Like, why are you resorting to guns and mechs with big Bowie knives?
And another thing, when those big trucks come off to like what do you call those kind of trucks? Bulldozers. Thank you. When those bulldozers come out, how are they going to stop them?
Yeah.
They have nothing that would stop that thing.
We saw in the first one, like, the trucks going by and they would have, like, arrows in the wheels. But, yeah, those arrows are big, but those trucks are enormous.
Yeah, it's like you have these helicopter things or these boats that, like, have these big openings where just, like, you could shoot an arrow through the window. Like, they took down those helicopters so easy. Don't send those helicopters out anymore.
The big like, fans.
Just send that truck. It can plow through anything.
I know. Yep. Yeah. Well, we're humans. We're not the smartest.
But I mean, I guess you like take out their train, and now you have like machine guns and bombs and your own jets that you saw in the thing that they never used. So I mean, I'm sure there's ways they could take down a big truck, but I'm just saying those things were massive, and it's like, how would you bring that down?
I want the red Na'vi who live inside a volcano. I want them to be like the peaceful ones, the like pure monk. They don't fight at all, and they're the ones that are like even more connected to the spirit world, and it's just the clashing black soot, red skin, fiery, volcano in the background, and they're like peace and love and no conflict. Edie Falco was in this. That was weird. I didn't expect her to be in this.
Yeah, once again, I think she's a character who was introduced to be a bigger role
Yeah.
later. Because it seems like, oh, I'm running the show now. We've built this station more in a year than we've done the past decade or whatever before. So it's like, oh, this is the big villain, or at least a potential villain for the future. But then she's just like, I'm just in 2 scenes to tell you to go kill the guy.
Yep.
It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she's definitely not threatening. And they have a bunch of robots that can build buildings in like 6 days. Just start sending those robots out into the world. Let them start building the city in the forest and stuff, and then they wouldn't even know it. You don't have to man it. Just start sending waves of these things. These humans are dumb. They don't know how to handle anything. So yeah, I'll take another Avatar. Yeah. I'll take more James Cameron anything. It kind of sucks. He's getting up there in age. He still probably has a good 20 years, but I don't want his final movies to be Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then nothing else. But I also don't want Avatar 3 and then another 14-year gap, and then him promising to do more and either does it and they're terrible.
We get James Mangold's Avatar 4 or 5.
Yes, we get Brett Ratner to come in and finish up Avatar.
Brett Ratner can't make movies anymore.
No. Well, why? Because he's on a list?
He's on the list.
Okay. He's not making Rush Hour 4?
Nope.
Okay, good.
I don't think he'll make anything ever again.
Aw, shucks. Because he was so good at...
Tower Heist?
I mean, I never saw Rush Hour 1 or 2, but I guess people really love those.
Did you really?
No, I didn't care. It's like, if I'm going to watch a Jackie Chan movie, I'll watch one of his older movies. And
you're so cool, Ben.
No, it's just like...
Oh, yeah, Rumble in the Bronx?
And I can't even say like, oh, I watched all of Jackie Chan movies. I like Jackie Chan, but it's just not... I don't have to see all of his stuff. And I only really like Chris Tucker in one thing, and that's Fifth Element. Other than that, I don't really like Chris Tucker. So there was nothing that really drew me to it. And same with like Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights. Never saw those. I haven't seen a lot of American Jackie Chan movies. The Tuxedo, never saw that.
I've seen every movie you just
Okay. All right, I want Jackie Chan for the next Avatar. Yeah. So the Na'vi are more like Africans, and the Water Tribe are like the Maori. What race of people should we appropriate for the next one? I say let's go Street Fighter 2 racist. Let's go Indian with the fire, and just have that kind of like Dalsum sort of theme. Skulls, cobras, magic lamps. Yeah.
We're gonna cut all this.
No, it's like, should they do? Is it more Inuit? Should it be more Asian? Should it be? I think Indian would be good. For if you were gonna do like a red Avatar, I think that's a good.
I know you're not trying to be, but I feel like we're raising a very fine line of just like specific colors being specific things. And
sure, no, I get it, and I'm not saying like, just and like, then the yellow Avatar, the Chinese.
You're riding the line, Ben.
I'm not. I just think if there was a red Na'vi, and you're gonna go with a different sort of type of people, why not Indians from India?
Okay.
Anything else about Avatar: Way of Water?
I said in a previous episode talking about, or last week, where I went on a mini rant where I talked about, even though I wouldn't necessarily like pitch Bones and all or Banshees of Inisherin to many people, I'm glad they exist because they're stories that I haven't seen before.
Sure.
And I think Avatar: The Way of Water is, I'm also glad that this movie exists in terms of just like, yeah, it's not breaking new ground in terms of like story or interesting characters or anything like that, but it's spectacle filmmaking, very much like Top Gun Maverick was this year. Like it was like, yeah, that story and character might not be all that interesting, but it was meant to be on a big screen. It was the most fun I've had at the movie theaters. This was the second most fun I've had at the movie theaters this year. It's like, you can complain about like, I just didn't connect with anything or I didn't care about the story. Like the movie is kind of just fine, But in terms of like the quality of filmmaking and just the visual splendor of it all, it like this is the kind of thing that like makes you love movies
Yeah.
and like going to the theater. And so even though like last week I'm talking about like Marvel and or Star Wars is just kind of like draining me and I don't care, but I'm glad these other movies that I wouldn't recommend to people,
Yeah.
but I'm glad they exist because
Mm-hmm.
like they were interesting. Or like this movie might not be as interesting, but like man, it's worth the price of admission more than most movies because
Yeah.
like you're seeing something you've never seen before.
And it's an original IP. It's
And it's
not
original
based
IP.
on anything
Yeah,
besides its own idea. And that's great.
yeah. And so I was talking a lot of shit on big budget movies last week, even though I like plenty of big budget movies.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the antithesis. It's like if Marvel's the middle ground, and then you have these like indie movies with interesting stories, but no one's going to see them. Versus, and then you have Avatar, which is big, huge spectacle, but
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of lacking in some areas.
Yeah.
It's like it's the perfect spectrum of movies.
Mm-hmm.
I just
It's got a little something for
yeah.
everybody.
And it's not offensive,
No,
really,
no.
in any
I mean,
sense.
I'm sure there's gonna be those assholes like, oh, it looks like woke culture, has invaded Avatar now. And it's like, well, that's stupid since the first movie's all about like
I'm sure they could
saving
say
the
that about
planet.
Paw Patrol. So it doesn't
Sure,
like
no.
I don't want to talk about it. It doesn't matter. I'm not listening to any of that shit. I'm just saying like you can go into this movie, not know anything. There's really nothing offensive about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a ton of fun. The biggest issue with it is over 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's long as fuck. And by hour two, I did check my watch and go like, how much time have I got left?
I
It's
was
like
at
right
like
as I got to the point where it's like I'm almost bored. The big battle happened. I was like, and then I totally forgot that I not wasted, but I spent 3 hours in this place.
I
It's
checked
great.
at like an hour and 24 minutes and I just like fuck. I have more than half of this left, including credits. But I was like pissed because this was like my second time I had to get up to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I still have so much more of this left. And I was kind of like angry at it for taking so long. But it picked up and, I was great by the time it was done. So yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything left.
So next week may not be anything. You may get just an episode of This Meets That. It's Christmas next weekend, so
We're gonna try and record.
we'll do something.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try, but if not, come back for the following episode, which should be like first week of January, and we'll talk about all of our favorites, our hits, our misses, the biggest bombs. We'll talk about our predictions from last year, and we'll look forward to next year and make predictions on that.
We can also talk about. Oh wait, no, Golden Globe nominations came out. Oscars didn't. Never mind.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we could do who we think is gonna win, but well, wait, that'll be in January.
Yeah,
February.
I care more about the Oscars than I do any other award ceremony.
Yeah, but I hate watching the Oscars. The only reason I watch the Oscars now is for this podcast. I wouldn't watch it if we weren't doing this.
Yeah, it's been a tradition for us. We watch it generally every year.
Yeah, but every year I watch, it's like I don't care about any of
No,
your
but hey,
speeches.
weren't you glad you watched it last year? You got to see that slap play out. You were part of history, Steve. You were there. It was like moon landing, 9/11, the Will Smith slap.
Yeah, I don't know if any award show has seen so many crazy things as the Oscars.
It's the biggest night,
Like,
you know?
you had the Moonlight La La Land thing.
Mhm.
You had the slap.
Yeah.
You had the
Marlon
nudist
Brando
at one point.
Marlon Brando refusing
Yeah.
to come up. Yeah, lots of stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if you're, but I was tired of hearing about it by the second day. So
Yeah,
I'm not looking forward to whatever thing becomes a thing this year.
And they're gonna address it, right? They're gonna make them present together and like make a joke or
Well,
no, because he got banned. Will Smith got banned, right?
Yes.
So maybe
I whoever is hosting it, I think that'll be like the first joke.
yeah. Let's get it out of the way.
Yeah, or they'll just like turn. Chris Rock will come back and like probably present. Maybe
Like-
he does the joke.
Or he like flinches. Anytime someone comes up, he should.
I don't think you do it and not. There's no way they won't
Yeah.
address it. But I hope that they don't.
Yeah.
I would much rather just like let's just move past it. It's been a year. It's been all they talked about. We don't need to talk about it.
Well, thanks for sticking with a little bit of a longer episode. So if you want to get in contact with us, you can reach us at WRPL Podcast on Gmail, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Hit us up with any of your questions or comments, concerns. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Good night.
You sound so enthusiastic at the end there.
I'm seeing a lot of sliding between legs and stabbing up, like into the taint or butthole.